Welcome back to Ronin Recap. Hope you enjoy this new video. Comment down below if you have any suggestions. Enjoy!
At the westernmost end of Acacia continent, a convoy of more than 20 people was slowly moving forward. There were only 3 carriages. Someone was in one of the carriages, and the other 2 were full of goods. However, such a team was conspicuous and luxurious in the desolate and barren border of Naden County. Especially when civilians saw the 4 knights riding tall and jujube red horses with shields and swords in front of the convoy, their eyes were full of respect. "Uncle Cotter, when will we arrive?" In the carriage, the young man put down the magic book, opened the curtain of the carriage, and asked the middle-aged knight. The young man was about 16 or 17 years old. He wore a simple black robe, and his angular and handsome face looked somewhat pure. His eyes were somewhat deep, and there was a touch of indifference after experiencing vicissitudes of life. After withdrawing the reins, Cotter Harlan shrank the distance between him and the carriage and reported respectfully, "Master Locke, it's only half an hour's drive away from Lister. It will take about an afternoon to reach your castle." "Okay, thank you, Uncle Cotter." Hearing that there was only half an hour to go to his territory of Lister, Locke Capet nodded his head. "It's our honor," Cotter replied sincerely and respectfully. He didn't show any disrespect to the master, who was called the most useless person by other nobles in Naden County. When he saw the magic book beside Locke, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Master Locke was such a nice person. Why did God have to be so cruel and let him have no magical talent? Thinking of the dilapidated residential quarters he had seen along the way, Cotter sighed even more. Although he felt sorry for Locke, he was not distracted at all. He was on full alert. According to his observation of the surrounding environment, there might be groups of beasts here. Sitting back in the carriage, Locke read the magic book, shook his head helplessly, and put it back on the shelf. There were more than a dozen books about magic on the shelf. The pages were slightly rolled up, which were flipped through often. There was only half an hour left before they arrived at Locke's territory. He didn't want to continue reading and decided to have a rest. He put hands at the back of his head and leaned against the carriage, lost in thought. 16 years, he had been in this world for 16 years. Yes, Locke was not from this world, but from the earth. In the past 16 years, Locke had basically known about the world. This world was very similar to medieval Europe, where there were many kingdoms. The difference was that there were many extraordinary existences of power in this world. There were mages, destroying mountains and forests instantly. There were guardians of holy light and the noble and loyal holy knights. There were swordsmen, with a sword in hand, killing the demons powerfully in the whole world. There were also some powerful warriors, breaking stones by strength. Ellipsis. In addition to these professions, there were also all kinds of strange creatures, such as dragons, phoenixes, elves, demons and so on. All in all, this was a world extremely similar to the Earth but filled with extraordinary power. In his previous life, Locke was obsessed with the career of a mage in online games. When he knew that mages existed in this world, he was extremely excited. Relying on the wisdom of adults, Locke was able to write when he was 3 years old and outperformed his peers in terms of intelligence. He was good at learning the magic theories and could even draw inferences about other cases from one instance. Soon, he won the honor of the number 1 genius in Naden County. However, fate played a big joke on Locke. When he was tested at 6 years old, the magic crystal in front of Locke did not respond. This meant that Locke's magic talent was 0 and he couldn't become a mage. Locke also fell from heaven to hell and became a laughingstock of Naden County. Since the achievements of the mage were limited, Count Capet wanted to train his son to be a knight like him. But as an earthling of the 21st century, how could Locke give in so easily? Regardless of the resistance of Count Capet, he had learned stubbornly the magic for 10 years. In the end, he failed in the magic and missed the best time of the night practice. Locke's reputation as a loser gradually spread in the noble circles around the Capet family. Helplessly, Count Capet managed to ask for a barren title for Locke through his connections. The fief was Lister, which was barren and deserted and no one wanted. It was well known that Lister was poor. Locke wouldn't be envied if he got such a fief through some connections. Although the fief was not good, it was at least a title of barren. Count Capet gritted his teeth and let Locke come over. Damn it. Locke could feel the magic element and absorb them into his body. Why was his body always like a funnel and couldn't keep magic element? Locke couldn't help but clench his fists at the thought of the situation that had happened to him every time. His eyes were full of unwillingness and loneliness. Half an hour later, Locke felt the carriage stop. "Master, we have arrived at Lister." The voice of Cotter came in the carriage. Locke walked out of the carriage and saw the scene in front of the carriage. Even with his composure, the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. The surface of the giant stone, which could be called barely a boundary tablet, was pitted as if it could break apart at any time. The word, Lister, on the boundary tablet had already been eroded by the wind and rain, blurry and invisible. Only a few marks of the knife were left, and a few letters could be barely seen. Behind the boundary tablet, there were withered plants and sparse trees. Such a desolate scene showed the barrenness to the fullest. What was more horrible was that the whole world was so quiet that there was even no sound of birds or beasts. Fortunately, Locke had a strong ability to accept the fact. He suppressed his depression and said to everyone with a smile, "From now on, this is our home. Cheer up, everyone. I believe that we can build up Lister with our own hands. We also believe that under the leadership of Master Locke, Lister will become better." With a smile on his face, Cotter replied with approval. The two's words cheered up the others. After a short pause, the convoy began to move forward again. The carriages creaked. "Ding tilde. I have detected that host has arrived at the territory, and the system of gods has been activated. To reward the host for activating the system successfully, you will be rewarded with a big gift bag for newbies. Do you want to open the system now to receive the reward?" As soon as the carriage passed the border tablet, Locke heard a continuous and cold mechanical sound. In the carriage, Locke's body trembled and his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Yes, he just heard the voice of the system. Locke's eyes widened and his breath quickened. As a young man who had read all kinds of time travel novels in the 21st century, he was too clear about what these voices meant. The golden finger, which he had waited for 16 years, appeared. At this moment, Locke wanted to shout to the sky to vent his depression, resentment, and humiliation in the past 16 years. But he held it back in the end. If he did so, he would be doubted by Cotter and others whether he was crazy or not. Open the system. Locke took a few deep breaths and tried to calm himself down. His trembling voice was full of uncontrollable excitement. As soon as Locke finished his words, the attribute panel, which only he could see, appeared in front of him. Host. Locke Caput. Race. Human race. Binding identity. Lord of Lister. Occupation. No. Summoning gods. No. Other functions, to be developed. Below the attribute panel was the function introduction of the system. 5 minutes later, Locke had a basic understanding of the function of the system. The so-called system of gods could get the opportunity to summon powerful gods by completing the system task. These gods would serve the host, help the host conquer a different world and reach the peak of the world. Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, Ares, the brave god of war, Poseidon, the god of the sea, who called for rain and shook the sky and earth, and Thor, the god of thunder, who was in charge of destroying lightning. God. Locke finally calmed down and became excited again. In the real world, every god was the existence of destruction. Excited, Locke thought of the unopened gift bag for newbies. System, open the gift bag for newbies. Locke thought to himself. As a senior game fan in his previous life, he knew that the novice gift bag was not simple. Ding dong tilde. The board in front of Locke lit up with a bright white light, and the golden gift bag for newbies began to vibrate. Staring at the gift bag which was opened gradually on the screen, Locke was looking forward to it in his mind. Respectful host Locke, congratulations for getting the opportunity to summon the gods once. Congratulations. You have obtained a bottle of level 1 body refining fluid which was stored in the system space. Congratulations. You have got a magic cloak of level 3 and it has been stored in the system space. The cold voice of the system was as sweet as fairy music in Locke's ears. As he expected, the gift bag for newbies was quite generous. According to the introduction of the system, the level 3 magic cloak was immune to below level 3 and most level 3 magics. Level -1 body refining fluid was used to strengthen the physique and increase the amount of physical strength. If these two things were placed in the world, they would probably cost at least tens of thousands of gold coins. Although Locke was shocked, he ignored the two rewards and fixed his eyes on the floating card. The God Summoning Card. As long as Locke touched the card, he could summon gods. Compared to the God Summoning Card, the first two items were insignificant. Looking at the card floating in the air, Locke was in a good mood. His previous depression was swept away. Locke didn't call gods immediately. After all, he was still in the carriage. No one knew what would happen if he summoned gods. As for the body refining fluid, he could have a try. Locke thought to himself, body refining fluid. A small glass tube appeared in his palm, which was filled with green fluid. He pulled out the cork from the bottle and drank the fluid. The moment the fluid passed his throat, Locke only felt a mass of hot air in his chest which gradually spread to his limbs, constantly changing his meridians and muscles. A few minutes later, the hot air dissipated and the reconstruction was completed. Touching the tight muscles, Locke felt that there was inexhaustible strength in an instant. Locke estimated that his strength had increased by at least 5 times. As far as he knew, generally speaking, the efficiency of the level 1 body refining fluid was only 2 to 3 times, but this body refining fluid could reach 5 times. Sure enough, the products of the system must be the best. After a while of excitement, Locke took out the magic cloak from the system. The cloak was printed with a complicated magic pattern, which he had seen in the magic book. He knew that this was a magic array, and the defensive function of the cloak mostly came from the magic array. Of course, in addition to the magic array, the level of the magic cloak was also affected by the materials used to make it. With Locke's current knowledge, he was still unable to recognize what the magic cloak in his hand was made of. Just as Locke touched the magic cloak happily, an accident happened. Howl tilde. A howl of a wolf exploded in the quiet carriage. The carriage suddenly stopped, which startled Locke. Watch out. Wolves. Protect Master Locke. Curtin and I will block the wolves. Becky and Sam stay around the wagon to prevent the wolves from sneaking in. Cotter's voice came from outside the carriage, accurate and calm. Locke opened the curtain and saw something black in the distance. More than a dozen ice wolves bared their teeth and stared at them greedily and fiercely. Ice wolves were quite common in this world, but their threats were incomparable to those wild wolves in his previous life. In a word, an ice wolf in front of him should be able to easily fight against a pack of wolves in his previous life. The horse began to be restless. To better deal with the wolves, Cotter and others had already jumped off the horse. Looking at the bestial wolves, Locke felt a little cold on his back. These wolves were different from those tamed wolves in the zoo in his previous life. These wolves would kill them. Uncle Cotter, to reduce the number of casualties, kill Wolf King first. Looking at the giant wolf behind the wolves, Locke shouted at Cotter hurriedly. Although he had never experienced such a situation, he had seen Animal World many times in his previous life. As soon as the Wolf King died, the wolves would collapse without be attacking. The giant wolf was more than 1 meter high, and the hair on its head had turned into silver, which was a symbol of the level 1 magical beast. If the giant wolf's hair had completely turned silver, it meant that it had advanced from a beast to the level 1 magical beast. If so, they would be in danger. After all, the strength of the magical beast was often much higher than that of human beings at the same level. Although it was not a level 1 magical beast yet, only Cotter could kill Wolf King in a short time. At the same time, Cotter had already noticed the Wolf King. With a strong fighting spirit, he replied, "Don't worry, Master Locke, I'll kill the Wolf King." After saying that, Cotter bent his body slightly and then bounced towards the Wolf King like a cannonball, chopping the head of the giant wolf with the sword in his hand. Seeing that, the giant wolf growled, and the rest of the wolves roared and began to attack. The giant wolf also opened its tusks and bit towards Cotter. While Cotter fought with the giant wolves, Curtin and the others were also constantly preventing the attacks of the wolves. Half a minute passed. Sizz tilde. Cotter pulled out his sword from the wolf's chest. The giant wolf trembled and fell to the ground. Seeing the death of the giant wolf, Cotter breathed a sigh of relief. But he found something wrong in an instant. The Wolf King was dead. Why was the wolf pack not affected in the slightest? Not even a little chaos. Was it because a bad feeling rose in his heart? He hurriedly turned around and loudly reminded Curtin and others, "Wolf King hasn't shown up yet. Be careful." However, he said a little late, and a giant silver figure had rushed to the carriage. It was the Ice Wolf King of level 1. Seeing the giant silver wolf which was nearly 2 meters high, Cotter's heart sank. He didn't expect that this ice wolf was so cunning. Not only did he know to attack the important figure first, but he also knew to use the method of pretending. Curtin was the first to react. Although he knew that he was no match for the Ice Wolf King, he did not retreat and roared to fight with the Wolf King. Bang tilde. Curtin was knocked away by Wolf King and hit heavily on a tree in the distance. After solving Curtin, the Wolf King ran towards Locke again. Fuck. The sharp steel teeth of the Wolf King gave off a gloomy and cold luster, which made Locke curse, with his hair standing. Jumping out of the carriage, Locke instantly realized that staying in the carriage would only make him more passive. But it was too late. Howl tilde. The Wolf King roared at the carriage. Under the roar of the Wolf King, the frightened horse went berserk and started to run crazily with the carriage. Locke, who was about to jump out of the carriage, was trapped directly in the carriage. Bang tilde. Sam swung his sword at the Wolf King, trying to stop him from approaching the carriage. But the Wolf King was faster and easily dodged, and once again chased after the carriage where Locke was. Curtin and the others were shocked, but their horses had already been scared away by the Wolf King. How could they catch up with Locke and the Wolf King? On the other side, Locke pulled the reins, hoping to stabilize the carriage, but it was useless. The well-trained horse was completely out of control. Bang tilde. The carriage frame was broken because of the violent impact. The strong inertia directly threw Locke out. He rolled on the ground several times before stopping. Boom. The carriage was smashed into pieces by the Wolf King. Fortunately, Locke had just used the body refining fluid and his physical fitness had been greatly improved. Even so, he was still badly hurt and dizzy. Howl tilde. The Wolf King's roar was getting closer and closer. Locke endured the pain and quickly got up from the ground. But the Wolf King was only 10 meters away from him. He couldn't run away at all. At the same time, the Wolf King bared his tusks and locked his eyes on Locke. His legs were slightly twisted and his head was very low as if he was ready to pounce on Locke at any time. However, the Wolf King didn't attack at once. Instead, he slowly moved towards Locke, with a hint of humanity banter in his eyes. Locke knew that the Wolf King was enjoying the excitement of hunting and ravaging his prey. In Wolf King's eyes, Locke was like a boiled duck, unable to fly away. Come on, it was not sure who would be the winner. Locke took a deep breath and restrained his impulse to run away. Summoning card. Locke thought to himself, and the card appeared in front of him. At this critical moment, this was his only life-saving straw. Bless me to draw a powerful god. Locke muttered and clicked on the card. Ares, Thor, Poseidon. Locke would be satisfied as long as he could summon such a powerful god. The card trembled slightly and burst out a dazzling light, forming a light door in front of Locke. The colorful light inside the door was unbridled. The Wolf King stopped and whimpered. He felt a sense of fear inside the light door. But he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he carefully recreated and maintained a safe distance. On the other side, Locke stared at the light door with great expectation, breathing faster and faster. Gods. A powerful god. Under Locke's excited gaze, a tall figure walked out of the light door. The moment Locke saw the god's face clearly, he was stunned, as if his soul had been extracted from his body, and his brain was in a mess. The figure was a girl of 18 or so years old. She was dressed in a white gilded robe, and her long golden hair cascaded down her shoulders. She had a beautiful face, a slender and slim figure, and was elegant and noble. She was shining in the light of the holy that had not yet dissipated, which made people feel worship. Normally, Locke would appreciate it. But at this critical moment, he only felt sad after being cheated. Where an incomparably powerful god was. Why did he summon such a delicate girl? What was the use of such a girl? To be his girlfriend. Even if he wanted it, he had to survive under the claws of the Wolf King. The light door disappeared and the surroundings returned to peace. If it weren't for the girl in front of him, Locke would have suspected that what had happened just now was just his illusion. Is it over? Locke felt sad extremely. Not only Locke but also the Wolf King, who was watching carefully in the distance, had a trace of doubt in his big eyes. Where was the sense of threat just now? Why had it gone? Sensing no danger, the Wolf King no longer hesitated and roared, opening his bloody mouth to bite Locke and the girl. Run! Locke was shocked and pulled the girl back. At this moment, his heart was filled with bitterness. He had thought that he could summon a powerful god, but he didn't expect that he would summon a burden. But it was too late. The Wolf King rushed in front of the two, and the two had no place to hide. Oh my god. There was only the sentence in Locke's mind. Bang tilde. Crack tilde. Locke only felt dizzy. Accompanied by screams and the sound of broken bones, the Wolf King had flown out in a parabolic route, hitting a giant rock in the distance. Locke stood still numbly, feeling his brain buzzing as if he was struck by lightning, and his brain went blank. Just now, he seemed to see the girl in front of him kick the fierce Wolf King away. Crack tilde crack tilde. The giant stone had been smashed into pieces by the hitting of the Wolf King. The Wolf King struggled to stand up from the ground and looked at the calm girl. The greed in his eyes had already turned into deep fear. Howl. With a painful groan, the Ice Wolf King didn't dare to stay any longer and disappeared into the forest. Locke looked at the girl. She was without much emotional change, as if she had just done something insignificant. Locke stared at the slender back surprised, and his jaw was nearly dislocated by the shock. Who are you? Locke's trembling voice was full of uncontrollable excitement and happiness. The girl in front of him was so powerful. You can call me Athena. She turned around and looked at Locke. The smile on her face was like a spring breeze, and her voice was as graceful as an oriole, which made people intoxicating. Because of Locke, Athena could use the language of Acacia continent. Athena. Oh my god. It's the goddess Athena. Ha ha. Locke Caput, how lucky. Locke jumped with excitement. Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, was brave, strong, kind, and merciful. She was the incarnation of wisdom and beauty. It could be said that among all the gods, Athena was ranked absolutely in the front. Locke suddenly thought of something and hurriedly found the attribute panel. Sure enough, the value of the attribute panel had changed. Host. Locke Caput. Race. Human race. Binding identity. Lord of Lister. Occupation. No. Summoning god. Athena. Fondness. Neutral. O. Faith point. 0. Opening it after establishing a divine temple. Note. Fondness was divided into 6 levels: cold, neutral, ordinary, friendly, intimate, and respectful. The higher the level was, the more rewards and help the host would get. The faith points were used to unlock the power of the gods so that they could recover and even surpass the original strength. Looking at the excited look on Locke's face, Athena asked in confusion, "You know me? Why can I feel a sense of familiarity from you?" Locke came back to his senses from the surprise. He tidied up the messy corner of his clothes and formally introduced himself. "My name is Locke Caput. I'm a baron in this world, and also your summoner. The law and strength of this world are indeed different from my world. My strength is also restricted." Athena closed her eyes and raised her fair hand in the breeze as if she was feeling the difference in the world. However, Athena was smart enough. "Judging from your expression, you should be very familiar with me. I guess you don't belong to this world, right?" Locke didn't deny it, but he had already seen the anxiously arriving Cotter, so he smiled and said, "Yes, or no, but I'll explain it to you later." Locke didn't lie. After all, his soul came from the earth, but his body was the original product of this world. Athena nodded her head. She was not in a hurry and looked at Cotter curiously, who rushed toward them. "Oh, god of creation, I finally found you. Are you okay?" Seeing Locke safe and sound, Cotter was too excited to say a word. Locke shook his head and smiled. "Uncle Cotter, I'm fine. I just got some bruises." As soon as the Wolf King escaped, the other ice wolves quickly dispersed, and Curtin and the others also arrived one after another. Curtin knelt on the ground with a guilty look on his face. "Master Locke, it's all our fault. We didn't protect you well." Sam and Becky also half knelt, looking guilty. "It's not your fault, and I'm fine now." Locke hurried to help them up. After comforting Curtin and the others, Locke looked at Athena and introduced to them, "This is Miss Athena. She will go to the castle with us." Cotter and the others had already noticed Athena. They were just too worried about Locke's safety, so they held back their curiosity. Looking at Athena up and down again, they felt that the girl in front of them was like a goddess coming from the world. She was stunning, and her temperament was even more superior to that of the noble count ladies. It could even be said that they had never seen such a beautiful woman in their lives. "Nice to meet you, Miss Athena." Cotter and the others greeted Athena. Although they were very curious why such a beautiful girl suddenly appeared, since Locke did not explain, they did not continue to ask. Athena also greeted them politely. After completing the corresponding etiquette, the eyes of Cotter and the others were focused on the giant stone not far away. There were already cracks on the giant stone, and the blood in the cracks hadn't dried up. The blood was mixed with the fur left by the Wolf King, and the silver fur had been dyed blood red. Looking at the blood on the ground, Cotter couldn't help but ask, "Master Locke, how did you get rid of the danger here?" Locke glanced at Athena and shrugged helplessly. "Maybe gods bless us." Gods. Stunned for a moment, Cotter and the others thought Locke was just joking. Could it be that a certain strong man passed by and saved Master Locke and this beautiful lady? It should be like this. The strong man had a special identity and a strange character. Master Locke couldn't expose his identity, so he just found a random reason. The image of the man who had just left after solving the troubles had already been constructed in the minds of Cotter and the others. Locke's carriage was destroyed, but fortunately, the magic books were still there, which surprised him. Afraid of other unforeseen events, Cotter took his men to get a simple pack, finding horses back as walking tools for Locke and Athena. Then they set out on the road again. However, they had a vague feeling that their master's physical strength seemed to have increased a lot, and he looked more masculine than before. Of course, they didn't know that Locke's body was really strong. They just thought that he had grown up after being attacked by the magical beast. In the evening, Locke and the others stopped. More than 10 meters in front of them, several stone houses stood lonely, and the walls were broken. Fortunately, the stone house in the middle was 2 floors. The tower still existed, and its shape retained the feeling of a castle. This was the base camp of their trip, Lister Castle. There were already people to greet them waiting in front of the castle. Although the old man in the lead dressed plainly in civilian clothes, his clothes were clean and tidy. Obviously, he was the leader of the civilian. Seeing Locke, the old man led several civilians behind him to kneel with a respectful face. "Respectful Lord, Hansen Phil welcomes you. Lister will be honored by your arrival." Although Locke was known as a loser in the noble circle, he was not someone ordinary people could offend. Moreover, Locke was the Lord of Lister, so Hansen didn't dare to show any disrespect. "Get up. You don't have to be so restrained." Locke smiled and motioned them to stand up. As a modern civilized person, Locke didn't like others to kneel to him. Seeing Locke's expression, Hansen and the others were relieved. They had preliminary contact with Locke. Although the new lord was called a loser, he was not a playboy. Lister was a poor and barren castle. If there was a lord who oppressed them, they would be doomed. "My lord, have you been attacked?" Hansen asked, bowing to the injured servants behind the line. "We met wolves on the border of Lister." Locke replied frankly. "What? You met wolves?" Hansen exclaimed. The people behind him were also frightened. The appearance of a pack of wolves was a disaster for Lister. "It doesn't matter. The wolves have been kicked out of Lister," Locke explained when he saw the frightened look on Hansen's face. "My lord, thank you for helping us solve the danger," Hansen said gratefully to Locke, and the others also expressed their thanks. From Hansen's words, Locke knew that for some unknown reason, there were often wild beasts, even magical beasts, entering Lister. But maybe it was because Lister was really barren. These wild beasts and magical beasts stayed for a few days and then left. As Hansen spoke, he respectfully led Locke and Athena towards the castle. At the same time, Cotter also ordered his fellows to unload the goods. Following Hansen, Locke walked into the castle. The paint on the iron gate of the castle had almost fallen off. Although it had been wiped, there were still yellow rust marks on it. The castle must have been carefully swept, so it looked clean and tidy. Before long, Cotter had ordered his fellows to unload all the materials and put them into the warehouse. As the level 1 knight, with outstanding fighting skills and management ability, Cotter was trusted by Count Capet. As the leader of the night this time, he made Locke feel much more relieved along the way. At the same time, Hansen, the supervisor, had also arranged a horrible dinner. The food that was hard to swallow refreshed Locke's understanding of the terrible taste of food in the world. They had been on the way for more than 10 days and encountered the attack of wolves. When they arrived at the castle, they were a little tired. After dinner, Locke asked them to have a rest. After arranging a room for Athena next to his bedroom, Locke also took a hot shower comfortably and went to bed. Locke thought to himself, open the attribute panel. Host: Locke Capet. Race: human race. Binding identity: Lord of Lister. Occupation: no. Summoning God. Athena. Fondness. O. Faith point. 0. Opening it after establishing a divine temple. Looking at the board in front of him, Locke still felt dreamy, but the real feeling of everything around him told Locke. Yes, Locke, you got the system of gods and summoned the powerful Athena. In a good mood, Locke fell asleep. On the second morning, with 2 books on night fighting skills in his hands, Locke knocked on the door of Athena's room. Miss Athena, I've brought some books on night fighting skills. I'm sure you'll be interested in them. Locke didn't forget the important thing after summoning the god, to refresh fondness. Ellipsis. Athena was the god of wisdom, war, and art. Locke would show her some books on night fighting skills first. She should be interested in them. As for books on arts, he didn't have them. After careful consideration, Locke decided to cater to her pleasure. Locke's father, Count Capet, was a knight. He had many books on night fighting skills at home. Locke carried a lot of these books when he came out. Sure enough, Athena took the books with great interest and thanked him. Ding tilde Athena's fondness increased by 5 points. With the sound of the system rising, Locke left contentedly. After all, this was the first day he came to the territory, and he needed to arrange something. In the hall of the castle, Hansen was telling Locke about the distribution of Lister's population. Under the guide of Hansen, Locke had already made an inspection tour of the territory and had a clearer understanding of the situation of Lister. To sum up the situation in one word, poor. All the trees in the territory were the property of the Lord. Without the Lord's consent, cutting the trees would be severely punished. Therefore, although there were a lot of woods on the mountain, most people could only live in the thatched huts which could not even block the wind and rain, except for a few ordinary people living in the old wooden huts. Locke was sure that Lister was the most remote and desolate place in the kingdom. After all, Lister was his territory. He couldn't just leave it alone. Locke thought while listening to Hansen's report. Ding dong tilde. As a great lord, how could he live in such a miserable castle and watch the commoners in his territory live in such a shabby house? System tasks: completing the castle construction and the house construction for the residents of Lister. Task requests: repairing the castle and making Lister's residential houses so that they could shelter from wind and rain. System rewards: the reward will be given according to the completion level of the host's task. Task completion levels: unqualified, qualified, good, excellent, perfect. The voice of the system echoed in Locke's mind. Did he have a mission in the system? Locke was slightly stunned and reacted with a burst of surprise. The houses of Lister must be built, and his castle must be repaired. But he didn't expect that he would trigger the system tasks and get the reward of the system. This was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. What reward could he get after completing this task? Would he get another chance to summon the gods? Thinking of this possibility, Locke began to look forward to it in his mind. Without any hesitation, Locke said to Hansen, "Mr. Phil, please stop for a while." "My lord, you can just call me Hansen." Hearing that Locke called him Mr. Phil, Hansen was overcome with trepidation. It was not Hansen's fault to be so terrified. In the Grim Kingdom and even the whole continent, the nobility was the ruler of the commoners. How could they call commoners like this? On the other hand, Cotter seemed to be used to it. This was also the reason why he recognized the kind and approachable master from his heart, who was regarded as a loser in the eyes of most nobility. "Then I'll call you supervisor." Hansen. Locke nodded with a smile. "Yes, my lord." Hansen bowed to Locke respectfully. "I know almost everything about Lister. As the lord of Lister, I can't watch my commoners live in thatched cottages which couldn't shelter from any wind or rain. That's why I need you to gather the people to go up the mountain to chop wood and build houses for yourself. I will also ask retinues to help you." Although Locke wanted to improve the completion level of the task and get a higher reward, he knew that he should do what he could. With his current 1,000 gold coins, he could only repair a castle. So it was better to take materials from the ground and build a house with trees and rocks. Locke's father, Count Capet, was only a knight at level 2. However, due to his outstanding performance at that time, he had made a great contribution, so he was awarded to Count title by breaking the rule. Because of this, the territory of Count Capet was undoubtedly much smaller than that of the other counts, and its economic strength was also much weaker. 1,000 gold coins could be said to be a huge sum of money. Hansen was stunned at first, and then he seemed to suspect that he had heard it wrong. He had already received 2 lords, and each of them tried every means to squeeze money from their territory. But now this man said that he would use his property to build wooden houses for them. My lord, are you telling the truth that we are allowed to cut trees and build houses? Hansen said in disbelief, his body trembling slightly. Locke nodded again and said with certainty, of course. Go and inform the residents of Lister. Thump. My lord, on behalf of Lister's residents, I would like to thank you for your kindness. Hansen suddenly knelt on the ground, making a big salute to Locke, and his voice choked with sobs. Locke helped Hansen up. He understood how Hansen felt at the moment. This world was not like the Earth in his previous life. The government was centered on people and would protect everyone's right to live. This was a world to play the law of jungle, and the commoners were only the objects of exploitation from the ruling class. Locke sighed in his heart. Seeing that Hansen had calmed down, he continued, then you can go to prepare for it. The construction had better be started tomorrow. Hansen nodded, wiped the tears on his face, and left quickly. He wanted to tell the good news to the others of Lister. After Hansen left, Locke asked Cotter to prepare as well and arrange personnel to assist the residents in the construction. In the evening, dinner was ready in the dining room by the servant arranged by Hansen. Athena entered the dining room, holding the books on night fighting skills sent by Locke this morning. There are too many loopholes in these 2 books. I have revised them for you. Athens put the books in front of Locke and sat elegantly next to him. There were too many loopholes and she revised them. Locke was stunned. He opened the book and found that it was full of contents, which indicated that there were loopholes in the move and the measures to improve it. He would give Curtin and the others to check on them later. Locke thought to himself. After all, he didn't practice night fighting skills, so he couldn't judge the content of the modification. The goddess of wisdom deserved her reputation for being able to make such a big revision in just one night. Locke had planned to use these books to refresh fondness, but now it seemed to not work. In addition to the books on night fighting skills, the most he had now was the magic book. Locke asked tentatively, not knowing whether Athena was interested in it or not, in addition to these books, I happen to have a few magic books. Magic. Athena's beautiful eyes lit up slightly and seemed to be interested. I felt the energy of different colors in the environment. It should be the magic element you mentioned. I can learn it. You want to learn magic? Locke asked in surprise. He was not surprised that she could feel the magic element. After all, Athena was a god, but he was still curious why she had to learn magic. Athena sighed and said helplessly, I've lost a lot of strength in this world, and many divine skills can't be used, so I need to learn the system and way of strength in this world. Okay, I'll get it for you now. As Locke spoke, he stood up and went back to his bedroom to get a basic magic book and 2 level 2 magic books he collected for Athena. Athena was the god he summoned. Of course, he wanted Athena to become stronger. Athena fondness increased by 5 points. The sound of fondness's rise surprised Locke. Seeing that Athena was absorbed in reading, Locke didn't disturb her. He decided to show Curtin the revised fighting skills of Athena. Curtin and the others were having combat training outside the castle. At this time, Curtin and Becky were fighting fiercely. Seeing the 2's fighting skills, Locke became interested. Because the moves they were training were exactly in the revised fighting skills of Athena. Becky, Master Locke is looking at us. Now it's a good chance for us to perform well. Let's show our strongest moves. Curtin's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. Becky nodded solemnly and chuckled, come on, let me learn the level 1 fighting skill of your practice. After saying that, Becky roared and took the lead in attacking Curtin with his long saber. Curtin looked calm and his long sword was placed horizontally in front of his chest. With a careful look, the long sword emitted a faint light. When Becky was only 5 steps away from him, he moved and the long sword quickly swept across, the sword shadow overlapping. After the collision of weapons, Becky was kicked out by Curtin. Curtin put away his sword and walked forward to pull Becky up. No wonder it's the level 1 fighting skill. Becky stood up and sighed. After saying that, he looked at Curtin with admiration. You have practiced the fighting spirit. You are about to become a level 1 practitioner, aren't you? At present, I can barely gather fighting spirit on the sword, but I can't release it as freely as Cotter. Curtin said modestly with a smile. Congratulations. Curtin, you're going to be a practitioner of level 1. Locke walked towards the 2 and said to Curtin with a smile. Curtin bowed to Locke and said, "Thank you, Master Locke. I will continue to work hard and become your level 1 knight as soon as possible." Locke nodded with a smile. He thought of the flaw mentioned by Athena and then said slowly, "Curtin, it's a good move. But in my opinion, there is still something wrong. The flaw is too obvious." Curtin's face froze. Although he respected Locke very much, he was still not convinced by Locke's question. He retorted, "Master Locke, this move of streaming swordsmanship has been tested by countless predecessors. It can be said that it has been thoroughly practiced. How can there be any flaws? If you don't believe me, let's have a try." Locke said confidently. Curtin hesitated, afraid of hurting Locke. But when he saw Locke's confident face, he nodded and said, "Okay, I'll control my strength. I don't use the fighting spirit." Locke took the long sword from Becky and recalled the shortcomings marked by Athena silently. He smiled and said, "Come on. Master Locke, watch out." Curtin quickly approached Locke, constantly changing his moves, and finally swung his sword at Locke. But he was worried that Locke might be hurt, so he didn't use the fighting spirit in his sword move. His momentum and power were much weaker than before. Locke's eyes narrowed slightly and quickly looked for the flaws mentioned in the book. In the past, even if Locke knew the weakness, it would still be difficult for him to seize the opportunity to fight. However, after using the body refining fluid, Locke's sensitivity and strength were greatly improved. Finding the chance, Locke took a step back and stabbed the sword at Curtin's chest. Curtin was well prepared, his body slightly sideways and directly dodging the long sword. Now, with a slight smile at the corners of Locke's mouth, the sword tip instantly changed its direction and hacked horizontally. Then his body spun. After landing, Locke lowered his body angle and lifted his long sword upward from the left. Curtin panicked immediately. When he came to his senses, the sword had already reached his throat. Becky and the others were also completely stunned, and the whole scene was very quiet and weird. "Now you believe me, don't you?" Locke coughed and put away his sword. Curtin swallowed and nodded stiffly. Looking at Locke, Curtin's eyes were full of shock and undisguised admiration. "Master Locke, so many people who practice swordsmanship haven't found any flaws. You can see it at once. You are really a genius." The others also looked at him with admiration. Seeing the eager look in Curtin's eyes, Locke knew that he had to explain, so he shook his head and said, "It's not me to find that. There is someone else who is talented." "Someone else?" Everyone's face froze. Curtin patted his head and asked, "Is Master Locke talking about the strong man who appeared 2 days ago?" Curtin's words enlightened everyone. Yes, Master Locke was rescued by a strong man 2 days ago. Seeing that everyone was guessing, Locke stopped playing the riddle and said directly, "It's Athena who found the flaw. Not only had this move, but she also found the flaw in other fighting skills." Locke handed the book on fighting skills to Curtin. "Miss Athena." After a short pause, he smiled and said, "Master Locke, are you kidding me? These 2 books were level 1 knight fighting skills. They had also practiced according to the books. However, except for Curtin practicing the fighting spirit and barely using a few moves, no one else could use them at all. It could be seen how complicated these fighting skills were. But now, the master told him that the 2 books of fighting skills had been revised by a young girl. This was impossible. It seemed that the master still didn't want to expose the strong man's identity. Thinking of this, Curtin opened the book. Yes, the man was very serious. Looking at the notes beside the fighting skills, Curtin smiled in his heart. He thought that even if the man wrote nothing, he would praise a few words. However, as he continued to read, his face became more and more serious. At last, his hand holding the book began to tremble slightly. "Is this really modified by Miss Athena?" Curtin widened his eyes and said in a trembling voice. Although he only saw 2 revised places, he was convinced. "Yes." Locke nodded. The 2 men, Becky and Sam, saw that Curtin was so shocked, and the 2 of them also came over. After reading the notes on it, their faces became serious. "Master Locke, I'm afraid Miss Athena has an unusual background to be able to find out the flaw in the level 1 knight fighting skills so soon. Maybe she is the successor of some big shot." Taking a deep breath, Curtin suppressed the shock in his heart and murmured. Athena was not an ordinary person just by her insight. Was the Wolf King of level 1 defeated by Miss Athena? The 3 of them suddenly came up with this idea, but it was instantly extinguished by them. The one who could defeat the level 1 Wolf King so quickly must be a practitioner of level 2 at least. At most, Miss Athena was about the same age as their master. They didn't believe that she was a level 2 practitioner. She was not a successor of some big shot. She was a god, a true god. Looking at the shocked faces of the three people, Locke couldn't help but feel funny. But he still said, no matter who she is, she won't do anything harmful to us. Okay, you can continue to study it. Then Locke went back to Athena. When Locke came back, the manual in Athena's hand had left the last few pages. Ellipsis. Interesting. 10 minutes later, Athena put down the book. It seemed that she still wanted more. Although I have a certain solution to the magic, the level 2 magic is still too weak. Do you have a more advanced magic book? Is level 2 magic too weak? Locke was speechless again in his mind. The level 2 mage was not everywhere who was still popular to be drawn into sides by the noblemen in the Grim Kingdom. Surprisingly, it was disliked by Athena. But on second thought, he agreed it was no problem. Level 2 mage really couldn't attract the attention of a powerful god, like Athena. With my ability, I can only get 2 level 2 magic books now. Locke shrugged his hands and replied shyly. He spent a lot of money to buy these 2 level 2 magic books. Seeing the disappointment on Athena's face, Locke knew that it was time for him to show his ability. Although he didn't have a high-level magic book, his magic theory was indeed quite rich. Therefore, Locke told Athena in detail from the beginning of the magic, the principle of the magic release, and finally to the profession of mage. For example, the levels of mages, the mage had a total of 10 levels. The level 6 mage could also become a grand mage, the level 7 mage was a tutor mage, the level 8 mage was a grand tutor mage, the level 9 was a holy tutor mage, the level 10 was a god mage. The 5 major branches of magic were metal, wood, water, fire and earth. Most mages majored in the 5 major branches. There were also some special magic branches, such as ice, thunder, darkness and light, which were rare but powerful. In addition to the mage, Locke also briefly introduced the other professions in the Acacia continent to Athena. The levels of the warrior, swordsman, holy knight and so on were the same as the mage. Among them, the warrior, swordsman and knight were mainly practicing fighting spirit. But the key point of practice was different among the three. Swordsmen who practiced fighting spirit also paid more attention to the swordsmanship training. Warriors refined their bodies with fighting spirit, the king of close combat. As for the knights, they could fight and defend with the mounts. Whether they were a mage, warrior, swordsman, or any other extraordinary professionals, they were all called practitioners. At this moment, Athena was like a girl next door, listening to her elder brother's story of the wonderful world outside. Her eyes flickered with curiosity from time to time. Half an hour later, Locke had spread the basic knowledge of the Acacia continent to Athena. Judging from Athena's expression, Locke knew that he had achieved what he wanted. Ding dong tilde. Athena fondness increased by 10 points. The prompt tone of the system surprised Locke. Looking at the 20 points of fondness, Locke felt relieved. It didn't waste his words. I have some other magic books here. Although they are all very low level, there are still a lot of interesting things in them. I'll go get them for you now. Seeing that Athena felt fonder of him, Locke decided to strike while the iron is hot and brought some more magic books to Athena. After that, Locke went back to his bedroom in a good mood. On the pier wall of the castle, Athena supported her chin with one hand, like a bored young girl at home who was watching the training of Curtin and others with great interest. There were 3 magic books on the table beside her, which were the 3 books sent by Locke last night. Noticing Locke's arrival, Athena looked away. She looked Locke up and down and sighed, "As the Lord, you are weak." Shrugging helplessly, he sat down opposite Athena. With a bitter smile, Locke explained, "I don't know what's wrong with my body. Although I can feel the magic element, I still can't condense the magic element." Locke told Athena everything about him, and Athena listened quietly. "Let me have a look." After Locke finished his speech, Athena grabbed Locke's hand and closed her eyes to feel what was going on in Locke's body. Feeling the softness of her palm, Locke's heart beat faster and faster as if waves of ripples appeared. The unique fragrance of the girl made him distracted, and his heart was restless. About half a minute later, Athena let go of Locke's hand and said in a deep voice, "Your body is indeed different from that of ordinary people. It seems that this is natural, but this problem can be solved. Really? Locke was so excited that the ripples in his heart were swept away, leaving only full of excitement. Athena nodded and said slowly, your body is special and you can practice magic like others. But the premise is that you can make the god of medicine, Asclepius, come here. He can transform your body and make you use magic. Athena had already known Locke's identity and knew that he could summon gods. The god of medicine, Asclepius. A few moments later, Locke found information about Asclepius from his memory. Asclepius was the son of Apollo and Thessaly princess Coronis. He was a highly skilled doctor, with the noble intention of saving all mankind, often in the wilderness of the forest to investigate the nature of plants and animals, seeking drugs to prevent and control diseases, known as the god of medicine. However, there weren't many chances for him to summon the gods, and he had to summon Asclepius. In this way, the chances were very slim. Unless he was lucky as the son of God, he could summon Asclepius next time. He had been waiting for more than 10 years. Locke didn't care about the rest of the time. Moreover, he had the system, at least as half the son of God. Locke felt like his mood was riding a roller coaster. Fortunately, he figured it out in the end and didn't feel very depressed. Although he couldn't solve the problem of his practice right away, there was still hope now. Athena, on the other hand, looked at Locke with a gleam in her eyes as if she was thinking about something. She said slowly, before the arrival of the god of medicine, I will train you, or a little magical beast will kill you. Training. Locke was stunned for a while and then nodded in his heart. Indeed, he should receive some training. After using the fluid, his strength was promoted, but he did not receive any training. It was like a child who has mastered the power of Hercules and couldn't use it skillfully as Hercules did. No problem. I'm also planning to carry out some basic training so that I can protect myself. If you can guide me, that will be great. After saying that, Locke suddenly thought of something. He looked at Athena curiously and asked, what's your strength now? After all, Athena had kicked once the Wolf King of level 1. Her strength should be higher than the level 2 mages. I'm not very familiar with the system of strength in this world, and most of my strength has been sealed. However, it should still be a little stronger than them, Athena said after thinking for a while, looking at Curtin who was carrying out the combat training. A little stronger. The corner of Locke's mouth couldn't help but twitch, a little speechless. Was it true that she who could kick away the level 1 magic beast was just a little stronger than Curtin? But it was understandable. After all, the strongest one here was only Cotter, and the highest level of the magic book and night fighting skills was only level 2. Athena had no judgment at all. This is the equipment for training. Get ready as soon as possible. With a wave of Athena's hand, a drawing full of all kinds of equipment floated in front of Locke. Locke was envious of her power. Athena seemed to have read Locke's mind. She explained with a smile, it's simple telekinesis. You can learn it in the future. It was true that a mage could use magic to extract things from afar. Locke stopped admiring and looked at the equipment on the drawing. Ellipsis. Locke looked around the huge stone piers, pairs of iron wrists, dumbbells. Locke glanced over it. Many of the items were used to train Curtin and the others, but some of them he had never seen before. Locke didn't want to waste any more time. He asked Cotter to get ready. Ellipsis. Looking at the direction Locke left, Athena's eyes twinkled, as if she was recalling some regretful past. Then she muttered to herself, perhaps, in this world, you can break the shackles of demigod and become a true god. Of course, Locke didn't hear that. On the third day after he arrived at Lister, it seemed that Locke woke up early because he hadn't adapted to the environment of Lister. Hansen was organizing the residents of Lister to cut the woods. As for Cotter, he went to prepare training equipment for Locke. When Locke gave him the design drawing, he was shocked. Although he didn't know many things, he could tell that they were for training. Hearing that Locke was going to train himself, Cotter was even more shocked. Of course, in addition to shock, there were more surprises. His master finally figured out. He finally gave up the illusory magic dream. It seemed that he was afraid that Locke would go back on his word, so he didn't waste any time and went to prepare. In a day, most of the equipment had been ready. As for the equipment that required a large amount of steel to make, Cotter had already sent someone to buy it in the nearby Bond City. In the morning, Locke changed into a casual white training suit and followed Athena to the square. Outside the castle, Cotter asked someone to reclaim a large open space which was more than enough for training. The open space was filled with training equipment. Cotter, is it suitable that Miss Athena to coach Master Locke? Looking at the girl in front of Locke, Curtin was a little suspicious. Anyway, Miss Athena looked like just a weak girl. Don't forget that Miss Athena can find the loophole in level 1 fighting skills. Her vision and insight are not something ordinary people have, Cotter said, who was standing next to Curtin. When Curtin gave him the revised books on fighting skills, he was shocked. As a knight of level 1, his feeling for these fighting skills was even deeper than Curtin's. He tried it later according to the revision. After the change of Miss Athena, the power of the level 1 fighting skills was close to that of the level 2 fighting skills. Curtin smiled awkwardly and nodded without saying anything. There was still a certain distance between the two of them from Athena, and they could still talk freely while Locke felt a little scared. In front of him, Athena's face was as cold as ice. She looked neither peaceful when she was reading, nor sweet as a girl next to the door when Locke told her all kinds of legends about Acacia continent. She looked like a hell drillmaster. Under the strong cold pressure from Athena, Locke asked carefully, which items should we start? Put them on. Athena pointed at the 4 training iron rings which weighed 10 pounds. Her tone was cold and there was no room for a retort. Locke was obedient and put the 4 rings on his hands and feet. He felt it by himself. Although his body was indeed much heavier, it was not difficult. Of course, it was also because he had used the body refining fluid that the physical strength in his body had increased a lot. Do a warm-up first. Seeing that Locke was ready, Athena nodded and continued in a cold voice, run around Lister for 3 laps first. To better manage the territory, the 2 lords of Lister asked people to build roads around Lister, which were connected when Locke came here. How many laps? Locke was stunned. Did he hear it wrong? Although Lister wasn't a big territory, a circle was at least 70 or 80 kilometers. 3 laps. Hurry up. Athena repeated the number, but there was a hint of threat in her tone. The coldness made Locke shiver. He didn't waste any more time and began to trot. Wow, the 40-pound iron ring is for our daily training. Our master hasn't received any special training, but he uses it directly. Is it a little too heavy for him? I don't think it's a big deal. Look at Master Locke. There's no unsteadiness or chaos in his steps. When did Master Locke's physical strength become so popular? Cotter and Curtin were still discussing in the distance. As for Becky and Sam, they led retinues to help residents cut wood. Let's follow, in case Master Locke is physically exhausted and in danger. After the discussion, Cotter and Curtin mounted their horses and followed him, keeping a watchful eye on the side to prevent Locke from being in danger. 20 minutes later, Locke disappeared from the training ground. Athena didn't follow him. She sat down on the chair beside her directly and began to read. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an hour, Locke had run 20 kilometers. At this time, he was sweating heavily, his breath began to be chaotic, and his steps began to be unsteady. Cotter and Curtin looked at each other, and both of them saw the deep shock in their eyes. 20 kilometers running with heavyweight was almost as equal as the regular exercise of retinues. Adjust your breath. Just as Locke's breathing became more and more chaotic, Athena's voice rang in his ear. Locke looked around and didn't find Athena except for Cotter and Curtin. Gods are powerful. Sighing in his heart, Locke quickly adjusted his breath and continued to run. Then, every time he breathed and ran disorderly, the voice of Athena's guidance would appear in time. More than 3 hours later, Locke finished a lap and began the second lap. Finishing a half lap of the second lap, Locke had staggered and couldn't move as if his feet were filled with lead. Several times, Cotter and the others wanted to help him, but Locke refused. They could see that Locke's body was almost reaching its limit when he finished the first lap. So they wanted to talk with Athena and asked for a rest for Locke. But before they could say anything, they were forced back by Athena's glance. Hold on, take a few more steps. Locke stared ahead and murmured. His lungs seemed to be about to explode, and his throat was also burning. He was very painful. Another half an hour passed. Puff. Locke fell to the ground and lost consciousness gradually. 1.5 laps, not qualified. Forget it, barely qualified. Before his consciousness was completely blurred, a blurry beautiful figure appeared in his sight. When Locke woke up, it was already noon. He felt a sharp pain all over his body. After lunch, Locke was taken to the training ground by Athena. On the training ground, Locke was holding a 40-pound stone pier. His legs were trembling, and his back was already wet with sweat. It was difficult for him to do a squatting stance. Master Locke fainted in the first training. Miss Athena is too strict. I'm afraid Master Locke will suffer a lot in the future. Looking at Locke on the ground, Cotter and Curtin sighed. They finally realized that no matter how they tried to persuade Locke and Athena, it was useless. Miss Athena and Master Locke were willing to train in this way. No one could stop them. If they hadn't seen Athena with their own eyes, how could they have thought that the usually quiet and elegant girl would have such a cold and harsh side? But I'm still curious about how Miss Athena caught up with us. When he thought of the morning when Locke fainted, Athena suddenly appeared not far away from them, which confused Cotter. Curtin was also confused, but they were so concerned about Locke that they didn't notice how Athena appeared at that time. Ellipsis. In the evening. Today's physical training is over. Looking at Locke, who persisted in train hard, Athena's emotionless eyes flashed a trace of satisfaction, and her face gradually softened. Bang! Locke dropped the stone pier on his body, which left a deep mark on the ground. Locke fell to the ground, staring blankly at the red sunset. This day was the most tiring of his 2 lives. After a rustling sound, Locke found Athena sitting next to him. At this moment, Athena became the sensible and gentle goddess again. The sunset glow in the sky made a large area of gorgeous clouds red. The young boy and young girl bathed in the glow of the setting sun, forming a quiet and charming picture. This is the practice method of the small universe I prepared for you. Athena tapped the air with her finger, and several pieces of paper filled with the method practice fell beside Locke's head. The practice method of the small universe. Resting his hands on the back of his head, Locke began to recall all the methods he knew about the practice method, but he couldn't find anything related to the small universe. It's different with meditation with mages, which is to communicate with elements and make elements enter the body. The practice method of the small universe is based on the body of practice people and to develop the potential of practice people, practicing your small universe. Athena explained in a soft voice, with a smile at the corners of her mouth. Locke nodded and didn't say anything. He enjoyed the beautiful moment quietly. He found that the girl's face was more and more charming in the gentle light. In the bedroom of the castle. Swoosh tilde. Locke exhaled deeply with uncontrollable excitement in his eyes. In general, Athena had given him another method of practice, which could stimulate the potential of his body through meditation and train, developing his own small universe. Then he stored the divine energy in the small universe. Yes, this was a practice method of divine energy. The small universe referred to the potential universe energy within the human body, which was the source of human strength. The practitioner could construct a small universe in his body and store great power in them, using the extraordinary power of shattering the stars and tearing the earth apart. After awakening the small universe, it was divided into 5 levels, which were the 6 senses, the 7 senses, the 8 senses, the 9 senses, and the 10 senses of the small universe. Although he didn't know how his divine energy compared to the magic power and fighting spirit in this world, it was not low. Since this was a practice method of divine energy, the harshness of it could be imagined. Locke even felt that this practice method might be several times more difficult than that of magic. On the following day, in practice, Locke became crazier. His desperate efforts almost make Cotter and the others think their respectful master had been driven lunatic by training. On the other side, the residents had cut the wood for 2 days. At this time, a group of people was packing up their tools and preparing to go home. The middle-aged man chopped the shiny axe in his hand on a tree stump. His face was dark, and there were traces of sun and sand on his rough skin. Supervisor Hansen, did the Lord really promise to build a house for us with these woods? The others stopped their work and looked at Hansen suspiciously. The Lord didn't want to exploit them, but he planned to repair the houses for them. How could it be possible? In their eyes, this Lord wanted to use this name to ask them to do the unpaid work. In the face of his suspicion, Hansen kept silent for a moment before answering cautiously, "After these days of contact, I find that our Lord is indeed different from other noble lords. So since the Lord said that he would build a house for us, he won't lie to us. Ha ha, these aristocrats are sinister and cunning. We can't trust them. Yes, these aristocrats can do anything for money. Someone in the crowd retorted as soon as Hansen finished his words. Hansen didn't know what to say in the face of people's suspicion. It was no wonder that these residents didn't believe the promises given by their lord. The previous two lords had made a lot of promises to get benefits from Lister. He had explained it several times, but many of the residents still didn't believe it, which also resulted in their low enthusiasm and inefficient work. Helplessly, Hansen had no choice but to go to Locke and explain the situation to Locke. After hearing Hansen's report, Locke finished practice and decided to talk with the residents in person. After all, the progress of building houses was related to the reward of the system. Seeing Locke approaching, the residents of Lister all bowed, and Locke also returned with a smile one by one. Under everyone's gaze, Locke walked to the front. Everyone, I know you will have doubts and scruples in your hearts, but I promise with the honor of the Capet family that these woods will be used to build houses for you. I won't make money through it. I'm the Lord of Lister, and I'm also a member of Lister. My goal is to make Lister a rich and powerful place. I know your wish is the same. Locke didn't lie to them. He not only built the house for the system task but also didn't want his people to live in distress. The system task only served as a catalyst. Locke's words touched the citizens on the ground. They expressed their opinions. We will carry out the order of my lord firmly. My lord, we believe you. Under the leadership of my lord, Lister will become better. Locke was satisfied with the reaction of the residents, but his face was still a little gloomy. He changed the topic and said, but I have to warn you first. If anyone else continues to be perfunctory and disobey the order, don't blame me for punishing you. Locke knew that whether it was the 21st century or this world, the parallel of grace and power was the best way to manage. Sensing the threat in Locke's tone, the residents trembled in their minds. They suddenly realized that the amiable man in front of them was their lord. The lord had the right to decide whether the residents in the territory would survive or not. Locke didn't even need to talk to them so much and could force them to work on the mountain. After figuring it out, the residents promised that they would do their best to carry out Locke's order. After chatting with the residents for a while, Locke left. In the following days, he also returned to the terrifying daily training. To Locke's disappointment, he couldn't open the small universe. However, under Athena's training, Locke's physical strength had risen sharply, even surpassing Curtin's. Of course, if they fought, Locke would not be a match for Curtin. After all, although Locke's physical strength had increased, he didn't practice the fighting spirit. Locke wanted to learn some swordplay or blade skills, but Athena refused. According to Athena, the 9th-floor terrace must be constructed from its very base. The practice would be promoted step by step to make a good foundation. Since Locke talked with them, the efficiency of Lister's residents had increased significantly. On the third day, a wooden house had been built with chopped wood. Seeing that these woods were really used to build a house for themselves, residents became more enthusiastic and worked more efficiently. Especially when they knew that Locke hadn't even repaired his castle and built residential houses first, they were deeply moved. Although everyone was excited and worked hard, Locke was still a little depressed. Because there were few people in the city, and there were not many people who could work, except for the old, women, and children. The construction of houses was huge, and he didn't know when the task would be completed. So Locke asked Cotter and Hansen with gold coins to recruit workers in the nearest bone city to speed up the construction. One day, Locke finished a day's training and was answering Athena's questions about magic. Dozens of people were gathering more than 10 kilometers away from the castle. This group of people looked ferocious. Obviously, they were ruthless people who lived on killing and robbing all year round. When you saw the clothes and behavior style of these people, you immediately thought of them as bandits. It was a gang of thieves with dozens of people. At this time, a black figure moved quickly from afar. It was a thin man. Leader, there are still 20 kilometers left. We will arrive at Locke Capet's castle. The skinny man reported to the foremost man in the band of thieves. The man who was called the third leader had a ferocious scar on his face, a large sword on his back, and a faint killing intent in his eyes. According to reliable sources, the loser, Locke Capet, brought 1,000 gold coins when he went out. It's a great fortune. It's a waste to keep it in Locke's hand. Inform the team to speed up. The scar-faced man ordered. The magic of level 9 is called Forbidden Incantation. It is one of the strongest strengths in the world, and its attacking range can cover more than 1,000 kilometers. It is said that a kingdom has offended a forbidden mage, but it was destroyed by this forbidden mage the second day. But in the past 100 years, it seems that no one has seen forbidden mages. Of course, god mages above forbidden mages haven't appeared for thousands of years. In the hall, Locke was chatting with Athena. Most of the time, Locke was talking and Athena was listening. Athena fondness increased by 1 point. Athena upgrades fondness of the host to a normal level. Reward: A1 drop of blood of the snake-haired demoness, Gorgon, held by Athena. Locke was thrilled to hear the familiar system message. After half a month, he finally raised Athena's fondness to the normal level. The blood of the snake-haired demoness, Gorgon, was said to be something that could bring people back to life. Ha ha, refreshing fondness is the key, Locke exclaimed with joy. Just as Locke was about to continue the anecdotes on the continent, he suddenly saw Athena's face darken and an extremely cold breath rose from her. Locke was confused by the sudden change. How could gods be so willful? Athena changed her face so quickly. But when he carefully felt, he found that the coldness of Athena was not aimed at him. Athena frowned slightly and looked out of the castle as if her eyes could penetrate the thick stone wall. Let's talk about the matter in Acacia continent later. Now we have to solve the current problem first. After a while, Athena looked away and said something that made Locke more confused. But the next moment, he understood. The sound of weapons colliding came from outside the castle. It was obvious that something had happened. How could there be sounds of fighting in the castle? Locke's face darkened, and a bad feeling quickly surged up. He rushed out of the door. Before he took a few steps, he saw a figure covered with blood rushing towards him. When he looked carefully, he immediately recognized that the person in front of him was the knight, Becky. Master Locke. Becky rushed over anxiously. When he saw Locke, he shouted, "The territory is attacked by the robbers. We are about to lose control. You'd better run away from the back of the castle. A gang of robbers." Locke's heart sank. Lister was famous for being poor. How could a group of bandits appear in such a place? But Locke also knew that it was not the right time to think about it. No matter why the robbers appeared in Lister, their cruelty would not change. The unarmed civilians of Lister would face a one-sided slaughter. Although Locke hadn't experienced dealing with bandits, he didn't panic. He asked in a deep voice, "Tell me the situation outside first." Curtin is leading retinues to resist, but the number of bandits is large, and the leader of the robbers is the level 1 warrior. They won't be able to resist for long. Master Locke, please leave here quickly. Let's buy some more time for you. Becky held his sword and looked determined. He knew very well that without the presence of Cotter, they would have no chance of winning against the brigands led by the level 1 warrior. "Becky, I won't leave." Locke shook his head and refused Becky's suggestion. What a joke. A god was standing beside him. The terrible bandits should be afraid. "Master Locke, you must leave." When he heard that Locke was unwilling to leave, Becky raised his voice. Hearing the fiercer sound of fighting outside, he became more anxious. Shaking his head again, Locke's eyes flashed with coldness. "Lister is my territory. How can I abandon my territory and escape? Since the bandits dare to come, they have to accept the harshest judge." Then Locke looked at Athena and said in a low voice, "But I'm afraid I have to rely on your strength this time." Becky was stunned and his words of persuasion were stuck in his throat. Was Master Locke scared to death? Although they also knew that Miss Athena had extraordinary wisdom and could see through the flaws of level 1 fighting skills, it was another thing. This was not to modify fighting skills, but to resist murderous brigands. It was not his fault to be so suspicious. After all, Athena had never shown her strength in front of them. Although they are some low-end brigands, their auras are disgusting. Athena frowned and nodded approvingly. She continued, "Although I don't want to make a move, I can indeed lend you a portion of strength." At this time, Athena slowly raised her fair hand. A pearl-sized light grain lit up on the tip of her slender index finger. She lightly tapped it, and the light grain instantly merged into Locke's body from his forehead. Locke instantly felt an unparalleled strength pouring into his body. With the support of Athena's strength, he even felt that he could smash the castle with a punch. The powerful strength made him nostalgic. Locke suddenly remembered that Athena had told him that she couldn't exert all her strength because there was no faith in this world. This was strength. Holding his hands, Locke's eyes were full of excitement and passion. Sensing the powerful and mysterious aura from Locke, Becky was too shocked to say anything. Was this Miss Athena's strength? Thank you, Locke said to Athena gratefully. After saying that, he took the lead in rushing to the direction of the sound of weapons fighting. Becky also reacted and hurried to follow Locke. At the gate of the castle, the robbers had been beaten back and were ready for the next round of attack. Sam had more than a dozen blade wounds on his body, and some parts of his body had exposed white bones, while Curtin was a little better. But there were also several blades on Curtin's body, and more than 20 retinues were also injured in different degrees. Sam's armor had already been dyed red with blood. Looking at the surrounding bandits, he tightened his grip on the long sword. Curtin, it seems that we have to die here today. But everything is worth it. Master Locke must have left the castle safely. Leaning against the wall, Curtin breathed heavily. Looking at the direction of the castle behind him, he grinned. Sam nodded approvingly with red eyes. Master Locke had treated them well, which was a return to Master Locke. At the same time, Sam saw two figures blurrily. Shit. Becky, what an idiot. Didn't we ask him to escort Master Locke out? Why did he come back with Master Locke? However, when he saw the figures' appearances clearly, Sam was first stunned, and then roared angrily. Curtin, are you all right? Seeing that Curtin and the others were covered in blood and guarded the door bitterly, Becky trotted over and asked with concern. However, Curtin didn't appreciate him at all. He roared at Becky angrily, Becky, you are an idiot. How can you bring Master Locke here? Hurry up and leave with Master Locke. Sam was even angrier. He said directly, you bastard. If anything happens to Master Locke, I will not let you go even if I die. Becky was stunned by the two people scolding. Locke also came to the side of the two and explained with a smile, you don't have to blame Becky. I asked to come here myself. Curtin carefully guarded against the bandits and sighed bitterly, Master Locke, why are you doing this? Now Locke couldn't leave even if he wanted to. Curtin was busy defending against the bandits, so he didn't notice the faintly strong aura of Locke. Curtin thought that Locke worried about them, so he came back. Looking at the shaky gate, Curtin and the others escorted Locke back towards the castle. Bang! The bandits had broken in and approached Locke and the others step by step. Locke roughly counted. Under the desperate resistance of Curtin and the others, the casualties of bandits also suffered a lot. At this time, the bandits suddenly made way for the scar-faced man. He rode a black horse and slowly came to Locke and the others. He looked at them playfully, and the other bandits also laughed with mockery. In their eyes, Locke was like a piece of meat on the chopping block. He could only be slaughtered by them. Let me give you a brief introduction. I, Elsie Yarlin, I'm the third leader of the Great Black Rock Bandits. In front of you, these men are warriors of the team. After saying that, Elsie's eyes passed the Curtin and the others and fell on Locke. He smiled contemptuously and said, are you Locke Capet? Humph. You are such a loser with a bad brain. How dare you come back and wait for death? Locke's face was calm. He looked up at Elsie, the third leader of the brigands, and said, how do you know that it must be us who will die, not your group of damned brigands? Ha ha. Damn guy, you're still talking tough at the end of your life, later I'll make you taste worse than death. Elsie was slightly stunned and then burst into laughter. The other bandits looked at Locke as if they were looking at an idiot. Ignoring the mockery of the bandits, Locke turned to Becky, Becky, lend me your saber. Becky nodded and handed the saber to Locke. Although in his impression, Locke had never used a saber. There might be a miracle. What happened just now gave him a glimmer of hope in his mind. Master Locke, let us take the lead. Curtin couldn't help persuading Locke. In his eyes, Locke also wanted to fight to the death. In this situation, they couldn't escape. The only thing they could do now was to block more stabs for Master Locke. Curtin and Sam, let Master Locke have a try. Although Becky didn't know how many changes had happened to Locke's body and how strong his strength was, he still advised the two of them when he thought of the magical scene just now. But, seeing that Locke was holding a long saber, Curtin and Sam finally nodded and didn't say anything more. In such a desperate situation, there was nothing they couldn't try. Holding the saber in his hand, Locke didn't know how to use it. It seemed that it was the first time he had used this weapon. After recalling for a while, Locke made a pose that he saw Becky and others do in training at the ordinary time. Ha ha, that's so funny. I'm sure that Locke Capet is not only the most useless person in Naden County but also an idiot. It must be his first time to take a saber, judged from his pose. Yes, I think this loser can't even beat the old lady on the street. Looking at Locke's poor gesture of holding a saber, the bandits burst into laughter again and laughed wildly. Curtin and Sam also sighed, while Becky was still looking forward to it. Faced with the ridicule of the crowd, Locke remained unmoved. Just laugh as you like. You don't have much time. Looking at the bandits, Locke even raised the corners of his mouth slightly, feeling sorry for these ignorant bandits. Brothers, kill this loser. Seeing that Locke could still laugh in this situation, Elsie lost his interest instantly. In his opinion, Locke had lost his mind. As soon as Elsie gave the order, the 4 bandits beside him came out, holding broadswords, and walked towards Locke with a sinister smile. Although Locke knew that there was a powerful strength in his body, he couldn't help but feel a little nervous when fighting with others for the first time. Curtin and the others had made a gesture of attack, ready to support Locke at any time. Seeing the bandits approaching, Locke mobilized the strength in his body. In the eyes of others, Locke's body suddenly raised an oppressive strength, which was incomparably powerful and trembling. Something is wrong. Looking at Locke, Elsie's heart trembled. He was the level 1 warrior, but he felt a shocking strength from Locke. At the same time, Locke moved, and a vast strength burst out from his body. Curtin and the others were directly forced back by the strength. At the same time, the long saber in Locke's hand had slashed out. The 4 bandits also found the problem, but it was too late for them to retreat. Kill him. One of them shouted and rushed to Locke, intending to kill Locke without mercy. Without hesitation, the other 3 bandits also used their strongest strength. But it was too late. Boom. The 4 bandits were directly annihilated in the saber light. After killing the 4 bandits, the sharp saber light did not disappear and directly chopped towards the direction of the bandits. The leader of the bandits, Elsie, was exactly in that position. Wherever the saber light passed, the slate on the ground was all broken, and the sound of breaking the air was deafening. Looking at the saber light coming to him, Elsie was terrified. He used the fastest speed in his life to dodge aside. He could feel that if he was hit by the saber light, he would die. Boom. Boom. The stone wall of the castle turned into powder under the light of the saber, leaving a scar of more than 10 meters outside the castle. The dust gradually dissipated, revealing the surprised expression of other bandits. What did they see? The most useless person in Naden County, the idiot they thought, used the godlike strength. At the same time, Curtin and the others also looked at Locke numbly, and the fanaticism in their eyes was constantly emerging. Looking at the powerful strength, Locke was also stunned. Master Locke is invincible. Long live Master Locke. Everyone, don't be afraid of bandits. Seeing that their master was so heroic and defeated the bandits, the 3 men and retinues shouted excitedly. As soon as Curtin and the others shouted, the morale of their side instantly rose. It was not until now that Elsie, the leader of the brigands, got up from the ground. His face was covered with dust and dirt, and there were several holes in his black robe. Although he was not directly hit by the saber light, the aftermath of the saber light still made him very embarrassed. So powerful. This blow exceeded the attack of level 3. At the thought of Locke's saber light, Elsie felt a chill down his spine. Wasn't Locke Capet a loser? How could he have such a devastating ability? Did he use some secret skills? That must be the case. Otherwise, how could it explain that a loser suddenly had such a strong strength? The bandits became more and more scared when they heard the shouts of Curtin and the others, and many of them had already had the intention of retreating. Don't be afraid, everyone. He must have used some kind of secret method to release such a powerful strength. He won't use this strength many times. When the strength disappears, he will be exhausted, and he will only be killed by us casually. Seeing that the morale of his subordinates was low, Elsie immediately shouted. Hearing this, the bandits who had been panicking calmed down. They looked at Locke in suspicion and found that Locke's breath had weakened a lot. Exhausted, Locke sneered in his mind. He raised the long saber in his hand slightly, and the powerful aura burst out from his body again. But this time, the aura was indeed much weaker than before. Rush! Locke roared and rushed to the bandits. Although he hadn't learned the saber skill, the half-month training was effective. Those ordinary bandits were scared to death when they saw Locke rushing towards them. They tried their best to escape. Brat, you are doomed to die. Elsie didn't panic when he saw Locke and the others rushing at him. Instead, a vicious smile appeared on his face. Puff. Locke directly slashed a squad leader. At this moment, he suddenly felt a strong energy fluctuation in front of him. Someone wanted to do a sneak attack on him. Magic. A mage was hidden among these brigands. Although Locke had never learned magic, he had studied so many magic theories. He had also seen mages perform magic, so he instantly knew what the energy fluctuation in front of him was. However, a mage had a noble status. How could he become a bandit? Things were not that simple. At the same time, the magical fluctuation had reached its peak. Locke narrowed his eyes and didn't take out his magic cloak. He felt it carefully, as if the energy fluctuation in front of him could not break his defense. Whoosh! The huge fireball rushed out of the group of bandits. Care. However, before Curtin could utter the word, careful, the huge fireball had already hit Locke. Bang! The fireball exploded on Locke's body, and the huge air billow directly overturned the bandits approaching Locke. It's over. Looking at the smoke that hadn't dissipated, Curtin and the others were desperate. After despair, their eyes turned red and were replaced by deep hatred. Revenge. Revenge for Master Locke. Kill. Even if we die, we have to drag one to die together. Curtin and the others shouted and rushed towards the bandits. Seeing that Locke was enveloped in the sea of fire, Elsie shouted excitedly, "Ha ha, brothers, Locke Capet is dead. Kill them." Encouraged by Elsie, the bandits' previously low morale rose in an instant. They shouted and rushed in the direction of Curtin and the others. At the same time, the mage, which was dressed like a bandit, appeared beside Elsie. Looking carefully, you would find that the mage was middle-aged, with a gloomy face and vicious eyes. Looking at the culprit who killed Locke, Curtin and the others were filled with hatred. However, the mage was not as happy as Elsie. He stared at Locke with a frown. The explosive effect of the fireball spell seemed to be different today. Then, as if he had seen something in the sea of fire, his pupils suddenly dilated. Something is wrong. With a cry of shock, the mage retreated quickly. The smile on Elsie's face froze totally. A figure. Yes, he saw a figure in the sea of fire. The figure emitted the baby blue light, blocking the flames outside. The most terrifying thing was that the figure rushed towards him and the mage at an extremely fast speed. Elsie dodged aside in a hurry. "I'll kill you," the scum of the mage whirled first. With a murderous look in his eyes, Locke gave up Elsie and rushed to the mage. After all, Elsie was the level 1 warrior. It would take more time to kill him, so Locke decided to first solve the mage who was dangerous but weak in close combat. The mage failed to dodge and was directly hit by Locke. Instantly, blood spurted and he flew backward. Master Locke is still alive. Curtin and the others also looked at Locke in surprise. The other bandits also stopped fighting and looked at Locke, who escaped from the fire, in disbelief. How could it be possible? How could you ignore the damage of the magic element? Looking at the unharmed Locke, the mage opened his eyes wide in shock. He had never seen anyone who could withstand the damage of magic with his physical body. Ignoring the shock of mage, Locke held a long saber and said with murderous intent in his eyes, "You're a mage but accompanied with bandits. What a real disgrace to mages. Let me end your guilty life. No, you can't kill me." Seeing the cold light from Locke's saber, the mage cried out in fear and instinctively struggled to step back. But Locke didn't give him any chance and cut his head off quickly. In his previous life, he had watched a lot of TV dramas. He knew clearly that both the rebel faction and the righteous faction died because of too many words. Although it was his first time to kill someone today, he knew clearly that he killed his enemy, so he did not have any psychological burden, and even the discomfort after killing was very small. How dare you kill the mage? On the other side, Elsie was still in a state of shock. He pointed at Locke in a trembling voice. Hearing Elsie's words, Locke sneered, "He can kill me, but why can't I kill him? I'll kill you to keep him company now." While they were talking, Locke had already walked towards Elsie, with an undisguised murderous look on his face. "Kill them. Kill these brigands who invaded our territory." Seeing that Locke was about to make a move, Curtin and the others didn't hesitate and once again rushed to the bandits with swords and sabers. Sensing the murderous look on Locke's face, Elsie panicked. He didn't expect Locke to have such a powerful secret skill. He had to leave, or this would be his burial place. Elsie thought thoroughly and quickly of a way to escape. A few seconds later, he finally came up with a way to escape. Locke Capet, go to hell. Elsie roared and rushed to Locke. When he was only 5 steps away from Locke, he suddenly threw the broadsword in his hand out. At the same time, he turned around and rushed to a gap in the castle. The other sharp-eyed bandits also ran in different directions. Of course, the other brigands also wanted to escape, but Curtin and the others tightly controlled them and they had no chance to escape. Dodging the broadsword thrown by Elsie, Locke stopped and had no intention of chasing after him. He had planned to kill all the bandits, but just now he received a message from Athena, asking him to leave a few people alive. Seeing that the third leader and several leaders had run away, the other brigands had no intention of continuing to resist and knelt one after another. They had already been scared totally. Even the mage and their leaders had been defeated, so they had no room for resistance. Lord Capet, please forgive me. Lord Capet, we are all civilians near Lister. We were forced by Elsie to be bandits. Yes, we were forced to do so. Please spare our lives. Watching Locke walking towards them, the bandits kept kowtowing in horror. Curtin and the others surrounded the bandits in the middle directly. Master Locke, what should we do with them? Curtin asked respectfully. He looked at Locke with incomparable respect. Locke's heroic figure was still engraved in his mind. Lock them. If someone dares to resist, kill him directly. Locke ordered as he handed the saber to Curtin. The construction of Lister still needed a lot of people and Locke didn't kill them. Although they could escape death, they would endure suffering in the construction. Let them atone for their sins here. At this time, Athena walked out slowly. Facing the bloody environment on the ground, her face did not change at all. Miss Athena. Curtin and the others bowed respectfully to Athena. Just now, Becky had briefly told them the whole story. It was hard to imagine how powerful Miss Athena would be. She just lent some strength to Master Locke, and he became invincible. Curtin's body trembled, and he suddenly thought of the scene when they met the Wolf King. Was it Miss Athena who drove Wolf King away that day? He. They were covered by heavy bloody aura. Pull them out and kill. Pointing at 3 of the bandits, Athena said in a flat tone, as if she was talking about something insignificant. Locke nodded his head, gesturing for Curtin to take action. The heavy bloody aura indicated that they had killed many people. They might be brutal men, and it would be a disaster if they stayed here. One of the 3 was the thin man who had explored the way before. When the man heard that he was going to be killed, he was instantly stunned. Then he roared angrily, "Damn it! Why do you want to kill me? My lord, please forgive me." The other 2 bandits begged for mercy with pale faces. Curtin was very decisive. He ordered his men to arrest the 3 of them. The thin man wanted to resist, but he was not a match for Curtin without weapons. He was killed in a few seconds by Curtin. Locke also walked towards Athena and wanted to ask why she let those bandits go. Before Locke could say anything, Athena's beautiful eyes flashed with wisdom. She explained with a faint smile, "Aren't you short of money and people now?" Locke patted his head and immediately understood what Athena meant. That was right. Bandits rampaged around, robbing property. There must be a lot of money. Seeing Locke and Athena smile at each other, Curtin was confused and asked, "Master Locke, what are you doing?" Locke waved his sleeve and ordered Curtin, arrange 2 people to watch over these bandits who surrendered and leave the seriously injured people. Take the equipment and let's go rob the bandits." "Master Locke, what did you just say?" All of a sudden, Curtin felt something was wrong in his mind. "I must have gone through too much today and misheard. I actually heard that Master Locke wanted to rob the bandits. I mean, making preparations, and let's go to rob the bandits." Looking at Curtin standing like a wooden pestle in place, Locke repeated, speechless. Curtin was still standing there. He didn't hear it wrong. Master Locke was really talking about robbing the bandits. After a while, he swallowed saliva and advised cautiously, "Master Locke, should we wait for Cotter to come back? After all, he is the level 1 warrior. In this way, we are more confident." Although Curtin knew that Athena had a powerful strength, the team of bandits couldn't be underestimated. Even the 3rd leader was the level 1 warrior. The chief and the 2nd leader would only be stronger than the level 1, and maybe there were warriors of level 2. What's more, in addition to the leaders, there were also hundreds of bandits. No matter how powerful Miss Athena was, she couldn't deal with so many people at the same time. Locke could see the scruples in Curtin's mind, so he smiled and said, "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I won't fight a battle without preparation." Locke's confidence calmed Curtin down. Now that his master was not afraid, then what were they afraid of? Curtin didn't say anything more and went to arrange it. Over a dozen miles away, seeing the secret sign of the Black Rock bandits in front of them, Elsie breathed a sigh of relief deeply. He was afraid that Locke and the others would continue to chase after him, so he ran all the way and didn't dare to stop at all. Mr. Elsie. A bandit who was responsible for support and sentry came out of the dark place. When he saw Elsie in a mess and the other bandits were all injured, he was stunned and asked hurriedly, "Mr. Elsie, have you been attacked?" There was only one warrior of level 1 in Locke Capet's knights. Wasn't it easy to capture them? Something bad happened. Go back to the camp first. I'll personally report to the chief. Elsie gritted his teeth and said angrily with a straight face. Russell tilde. At this moment, several other voices were coming from behind. Elsie's face changed. Did Locke come after him? Astonishment and doubt could be seen on their faces. Elsie and the sentry took out their weapons and carefully prepared. When the two of them were in high spirits, they saw 3 familiar figures. One of them reported, "Maybe we are the last few. The others all lost. Leave here first, and then come to get even with Capet." Elsie's face was extremely gloomy, and his eyes were full of resentment. The group of people quickly left Lister's area and rushed to the stockaded village where the Black Rock bandits were. After a night's journey, Elsie and the others finally fled back to the village. Inside the room, Angus, the chief of the team, was having sex with 2 women. It was a critical moment. "Chief, Mr. Elsie is back." A flustered voice came from outside. Angus was in a good mood, but he was annoyed after being disturbed. He cursed, "Fuck, don't you know what I'm doing? Let them wait. Honey, it's time for me to change another guard. He is too blind now." Angus put his hand on the woman's plump chest beside him while teasing the woman beneath him. "Chief." However, just as his sex feeling came, the voice of the guard came from outside again. For a moment, his anger rose. "Mr. Elsie failed and lost a lot of brothers. Sir Jax was also dead." The guard continued to report. Elsie failed. Jax was dead. Angus's anger was choked by the guard's words. The level 1 warrior and level 1 mage were almost a tyrannical force. Were they hurt badly in poor Lister? At the disgruntled voice of the woman beneath him, Angus got up with a serious face and quickly put on the clothes aside, the magic robe. On the chest of the magic robe, there were 2 bright red bars, which was the symbol of the level 2 fire mage. The huge conference hall was filled with the leaders of Black Rock bandits. There were 3 seats in the front, Elsie on the left and second leader Leth on the right. Looking at Elsie, who looked like a loser, Leth sneered, "Elsie, you were beaten up by a loser and ran away, almost losing all brothers. You're getting worse and worse. Even if it were you, it wouldn't be much better." Elsie snorted and said with a long face. The others had already been accustomed to the tit-for-tat between the second leader and the third leader. At this moment, they just sat silently and did not dare to interfere. However, when they saw the wounds on Elsie's body, they were still a little shocked. Even the third leader had suffered such a great loss. Was the rumored loser so powerful? At this time, Angus also came in. Seeing Angus come in, everyone stood up and greeted him. In Black Rock bandits, Angus had absolute authority. Angus didn't say anything else after he sat down. He looked at Elsie directly and said, "Let's talk about the situation. At first, we had already broken into Capet's castle. We thought we were sure to win, but Capet suddenly appeared at this time and grasped a mysterious strength. This strength is very powerful. I am not a match for it, even a single move in head-on-head fighting." Speaking of the mysterious strength controlled by Locke, Elsie's eyes were full of fear. In the end, Sir Jax mingled with brothers and planned to do a sneak attack on Capet. However, Capet resisted Jack's fireball spell with his strength, which could be said to be unharmed. Finally, he killed Sir Jax. Elsie told them what had happened to him. Thinking of how powerful Locke had been that day, he was a little shocked. Mysterious strength. What kind of strength can directly hurt the level 1 warrior? It not only defeated the level 1 warrior but also resist the magic at level 1. As soon as Elsie finished his words, the bandits were in an uproar. Some of them even looked at Elsie suspiciously. Did he just find a random reason after he lost the battle? Thump, thump. Angus knocked on the table and the hall gradually quieted down. Capet is a famous loser, so he can't defeat Elsie with his strength. I suspect that he has used some secret method to get the mysterious strength. Angus spoke out his judgment slowly. He believed that Elsie didn't dare to deceive him. Secret method. The bandits of the team exclaimed. Their eyes lit up with extreme greed. There was a secret method to improve one's practice base, which was an invaluable treasure that could only be found once in a while. In many people's eyes, the secret method in Locke's hand was already theirs. Don't forget that loser can use the secret method now. How could Elsie not understand what was on everyone's mind? Only you will be defeated by this loser. Leth scoffed, then he turned to Angus and pleaded, Dear Chief, I request to go ahead and kill Locke and take the secret method for you. Faced with Leth's mockery, Elsie clenched his fists in anger. But on second thought, he felt relieved and even sneered in his heart. He knew the strength of Leth. Although Leth was a little stronger than him, if Locke used the strength last time, he might die there. However, Angus shook his head and said, I'll go to Lister myself this time. The secret method must be a priceless treasure to make a loser defeat the level 1 warrior in an instant. Angus decided to take it by himself in case of any accidents. There was no everlasting ally in front of interests. The reason why these subordinates obeyed his orders was also because of his powerful strength and background. It was hard to guarantee that no one would have a second thought and run away with the secret method. Gather all the people, take your weapons, kill Locke, Capet and all people in Lister. With the order of Angus, the whole brigands were excited in the encampment, and they began to move quickly. Locke stopped 10 kilometers away from the fortress of Black Rock bandits. They followed the clues left by bandits along the way to this place. Since they had rested several times at night, they were not too tired. These bandits are good at choosing a place. Looking at the changing terrain ahead, Locke sighed. The fortress of the bandits was located between two dangerous peaks, which served as two natural barriers to protect the fortress in the middle. The road in front of the fortress was getting narrower and narrower. On both sides of the road were mountains and hills, which were suitable for defense. Locke didn't know about the situation of the back fortress, but he thought it was easy to defend but hard to attack. More importantly, more than 10 kilometers away was one of the critical transportation channels for trade between Naden County and Deauville County, from which a large number of the caravan would pass. Master Locke, the bandits occupied the high ground with a large number of people. I'm afraid we are no match for them. It's not too late for us to retreat now. After looking at the terrain, Curtin said with concern. Except for Sam and 4 seriously injured retinues, there were only more than 20 of them now. How could they rob the bandits? It's too late. We have been found by the bandits. Looking at the grass in the distance, Athena said slowly. Everyone followed Athena's gaze and saw the grass move. Then a figure quickly disappeared behind the grass. Seeing this, Curtin and the others became a little anxious. If they didn't leave now, it would be too late. Locke didn't say anything but looked at Athena. With such a small group of people like them, if they attacked by force, they would definitely lose their lives. But he knew that since Athena came with them, she must have already thought of a solution. Athena smiled mysteriously and gently raised her palm. Everyone saw a blue light spot in size of a rice grain appear in her hand, and then it quickly expanded. With Athena's palm as the center, the blue energy quickly gathered in the shape of whirlpools. The energy around them was accumulated, making the surrounding wind whistle. The young girl's hair was flicking with the wind, clothes fluttering. She was like a noble goddess in the painting, which was worshipped. In a few seconds, a fist-sized water ball had formed. Is this, water ball spell? Locke stared at the water ball in Athena's hand and asked uncertainly. He knew that Athena planned to learn magic, but she practiced too fatly. According to the magical theories he had learned, this was indeed the water ball spell. But normally, the water ball was as large as a human head. Why was the water ball used by Athena so small? What Locke didn't know was that the water ball spell condensed by Athena with divine force was the purest water element that was directly refined. It was compressed in a very small space at the same time and had great power. Playing with the mini ball in her hand, Athena nodded with a smile, This is the waterball spell, but I have modified it myself. Curtin's dry throat moved, trying hard to express what he wanted to say. Miss Athena, are you a mage? Now, I think so. Athena nodded with a smile. Although the waterball spell she used was different from this world, this was indeed the level 1 water magic that could only be used by a water mage. Miss Athena was a mage. The hearts of Curtin and the others began to turn upside down, and the respect in their eyes was beyond words. When did you learn magic? Locke asked curiously, hiding the surprise in his eyes. Athena rubbed her chin, thought for a while, and said, it's just some simple magics. It's not difficult. I acquired them after reading. It was not difficult. She knew it after reading a book. Listen, how easy for her. Seeing Athena take it for granted, Locke felt that his blood pressure had risen. This was the difference between persons. No, between a man and a god. Miss Athena just began to learn magic. Magic was very simple. Curtin and the others only felt that the conversation between the two of them was like a fantasy. Locke put an end to this topic decisively. If they continued to talk, he would be sadder. While everyone was shocked, with a slight wave of Athena's hand, the water ball in her hand flew far away and exploded directly. A thick mist in the forest in front of them quickly dispersed in the direction of the brigands' fortress. Obviously, it was caused by Athena's waterball spell. You used the fog produced by the waterball spell to block the bandit's sight. Looking at the white fog that was still spreading, Locke seemed to understand what Athena wanted to do. Yes. With a serious look on her face, Athena said slowly, there are many bandits. They are powerful and guard the dangerous place. We don't have a good number of people and any advantage in the place. We can only take them by strategy. Therefore, we need to manage to consume their strength and arrows firstly. The logic was clear, and the analysis was comprehensive and thorough. At this moment, everyone had an illusion that the girl in front of them was like a female general who was tactical and invincible. Athena was the famous war goddess. It was a piece of cake for her to command such a small battle. Looking at the admiration in the eyes of his fellows, Locke couldn't help but sigh in his heart. In the fortress. What did you say? Angus suddenly stood up from the chair, his face full of disbelief. Feeling the anger from Angus, the bandit bit the bullet and said again, Locke Capet is coming up with his knights and retinues. Good. Very good. Angus laughed in anger, with a murderous look on his face. Capet, you ask for trouble. Tell everyone to go with me with weapons, and don't give Locke any chance to escape. It was a shame to be beaten at the gate. The rest of the bandits were flabbergasted when they knew that Locke Capet, who had defeated the third leader, had brought his knights to catch up with them. Soon, the three leaders of the brigands gathered together. Leth looked at Elsie with a smile, and the mockery in his tone was undisguised. I heard that Capet, who defeated you, has brought someone to catch up with you. What a shameful thing it was to be beaten and run away, being caught up with at home. He believed that Elsie's prestige among the bandits would be greatly reduced. Thinking of this, he felt happy. Elsie's face was more darkened when he heard the sarcasm of Leth. Suddenly, Angus, who had been silent all the time, reminded them in a deep voice, the situation is not right. You all behave yourself. Elsie snorted and ignored Leth because he had noticed something unusual. A white mist gradually enveloped them. A few minutes later, they were already in the mist. In the white mist, the range of vision was only 2 meters. 2 meters away was a white blanket and nothing could be seen. If something was unusual, there must be something wrong. They had lived there for more than 10 years, but there had never been a fog. Why did it happen today? It was not a coincidence. Things have changed. Don't act rashly. Staring at the white mist, Angus ordered Elsie and others beside him, ask everyone to cheer up highly to prevent the enemy from a sneak attack. Ha ha, dear chief, you're overthinking. There are more than 10 traps and defenses in our fortress. With that little number of people, Capet is doomed to death. Leth said with a smile in a disdainful tone. Yes, I bet that Capet and the others can't even reach the gate. I don't think anyone can afford to offend the fortress of Black Rock bandits. Other bandits echoed. Only Elsie kept a straight face and no one knew what was on his mind. Hearing his subordinate's words, Angus also felt that he was too careful. Who is Locke Capet? He is just a loser in the aristocratic circle of Naden County. How can he break through the solid defense of the fortress? However, He still waved at his subordinates and said, "Be careful and make preparations." Angus's order was quickly conveyed to other bandits. On the defensive wall of the fortress, a group of bandits stared ahead with full attention, and arrows covered with poison had already been placed on the bows. Kill. Suddenly, a sound of killing came from the white mist in front of them. "Archer, hurry up." Face changed, the group leader of the brigands shouted at his men without hesitation. Judging from the sound, they wouldn't be more than 20 meters away from the enemy. Rustle, rustle. Arrows covered with poison rushed out of the bandits' bows one by one, penetrated the white mist, and shot in the direction of the sound source. Two groups of bandits shot 2 rounds of poisonous arrows in turn, and the sound in the distance finally disappeared. According to intelligence, there were only more than 20 people on the other side, and they had shot at least more than 100 poisonous arrows. Even if they couldn't see the person clearly, the other side must have become a hedgehog now. Rush. Kill these bandits. However, just as the bandits relaxed, another young and loud voice came into their ears. They were still alive. Hurry up. Keep shooting. Shoot them to death. The group leader's heart tightened and shouted at his subordinate. Ellipsis. Half an hour later, in the white mist in the distance, there was a familiar sound of shouting again. The group leader's face was a little darkened, but he gritted his teeth and ordered, "Shoot. Shoot. Shoot." Another rain of arrows pierced through the white mist. In the hall, the group leader had reported the situation at the gate to Angus. "Do you mean that you have shot more than half of the arrows without even seeing anyone?" Angus's face darkened and asked seriously. Sensing the anger in Angus's tone, the group leader explained stiffly, "Yes, the fog is spreading in front of us. We can't see the situation at all, and we don't dare to go out to investigate, so stop shooting. Everyone should be on high alert to prevent the enemy from a sneak attack." Angus was very decisive. It was obvious that the other party was consuming their arrows. The group leader took the order and quickly went down to deliver it. "Locke Capet, you are smart. But it's your bad luck to meet my Black Rock bandits." Although the underlings had been tricked, Angus didn't worry too much. He was confident in the defense of his fortress. There were more than 10 traps and defenses. Locke would never be able to come back. About 1 mile in the forest away from the fortress, Athena had sensed that the bandits had begun to relax. She turned around and said to Locke, "It's about time." Locke nodded and gestured for Curtin and others to get ready. Curtin and the others also held their weapons tightly and were ready to charge. Under Locke's lead, they approached the fortress carefully. Looking at the arrows all over the ground, Curtin felt his scalp tingling. If they rushed over like this, they might die without knowing how. But deep in his heart, he began to admire Athena. It was just a little trick. They had only roared a few times and consumed so many weapons of the enemy. Of course, it couldn't be without the magic sound transmission ability of Athena. After a while, they were less than 100 meters away from the gate. Looking at the blurry outline of the city wall in the distance, Locke lowered his voice. "These brigands are really unusual. They have built such a large defensive wall. The gate is a hard nut to crack." Looking at the 10-meter-high city wall, Athena said, "Explode the gate directly." To explode. Looking at the tall wall, Curtin twitched the corners of his mouth and reminded in a low voice, "Miss Athena, we didn't bring gunpowder with us." Locke didn't say anything. He knew that Athena must have a plan. "I didn't mean to use gunpowder." The corner of Athena's mouth raised a beautiful arc. It was a confident and charming smile. After saying that, she strode towards the gate without hiding anything. At the same time, the energy in her palm was transmitted. In the blink of an eye, a fist-sized fireball was formed. Fireball spell. Looking at the fire in Athena's hand, Locke twitched the corners of his mouth again and said numbly. In such a short period, using water magic well was already very terrifying, and now she even had fire magic. Curtin and the people behind him looked nervous and confused. What was the fireball spell? What was Master Locke talking about? But the next moment, they seemed to know what Locke meant. The fireball in Athena's hand had taken shape. Different from the previous cold, they felt a burst of burning sensation in Athena's hands. There was no doubt that as long as they touched it a little, they would suffer a lot. On the wall of the fortress, a bandit rubbed his sore arm tiredly and complained, "I don't know who dares to." The next moment, the bandit's words were stuck in his throat. All of a sudden, a slender black shadow appeared in his eyes. The black shadow walked over from the fog above board, even giving people a feeling of strolling leisurely. There seemed to be a ball of red light flashing in the black figure's hand. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! After a short pause, the bandit trembled and roared. The person who dared to come to the fortress at this time couldn't be a guest. At the same time, the bandit saw the light in the shadow's hand suddenly move and quickly fly in his direction. In just a few seconds, the ball of light had already rushed in front of him. Bang! With a loud noise, a big hole had been made in the city wall by the fireball. The brigands in the center of the explosion didn't know what had happened and were directly burned to ashes by the flames. It was so powerful. Looking at the smoke which didn't spread on the city wall, Locke was shocked. Come with me. Although he was extremely shocked, he knew that it was not the right time to think about it. He roared and rushed to the fortress. Curtin and the others were also awakened by Locke's roar. They pulled out their weapons and followed Locke into the fortress. The several bandits were far away from the explosion center, but they were also stunned by the aftershock of the explosion. When they came to their senses, Locke and the others had already put their swords on their necks. We surrender. Don't kill us. Feeling the chill on their neck, one of the bandits knelt directly, and the rest of the bandits also knelt, not daring to move at all. After all, Lister still needed a lot of labor, and Locke didn't kill them all. After binding up the bandits, he left a retinue to watch them and continued to attack with his men. On the defensive work of the Stonehenge in the fortress, a group of bandits was carefully observing. They all heard the explosion in front of them, and it was obvious that someone was rushing into the mountain. As long as they saw people, they would push down the huge stones in front of them, and these stones would ruthlessly crush their enemies. However, they didn't see anyone but saw a few red lights flying towards them first. Boom! Boom! In the explosion, more than 10 bandits were directly burned to ashes. A familiar scene played out in other defensive works. The traps and defenses that the bandits were proud of were destroyed in this way. Boom! 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 Ellipsis. Why are we here? What are we doing here? Looking at the fireballs that flew out of Athena's hand one after another, Curtin and the others were somewhat numb. From the moment they entered the fortress till now, they had solved a few disordered bandits. It could be said that they came in unimpeded. They almost walked into the fortress. As soon as the bandits showed up, Athena would throw a fireball at them as long as they didn't surrender. There was no need for Curtin and the others to do anything. Locke and the others moved quickly towards the conference hall with an irresistible momentum. Chief, bad news. Capet is coming with his men. A bandit ran in a hurry and reported to Angus. That loser came here with his men. Angus was stunned and didn't want to believe it was true. In terms of the defense of the mountain, even if the armies of several nearby areas came to attack, they would suffer a lot. Leth and Elsie were also shocked. Is Capet, the loser, so powerful? Another explosive sound came from outside the conference hall. Angus couldn't sit still any longer. The truth was in front of him, and he had to believe it. His eyes were filled with coldness. He grabbed the magic wand and walked straight out of the conference hall. I'm here to see what this Capet can do. As a member of the level 2 fire mages, he didn't believe that there was anyone who could threaten him. Leth and Elsie followed Angus closely with weapons in their hands. 10 minutes later. Puff. After killing a bandit who rushed up to obstruct him with a sword, Locke stopped and fixed his eyes on the front. At this time, a large group of bandits appeared in front of them. There should be 80 or 90 people. They were Angus, Elsie, and the others. Angus waved his hand and all the bandits stopped. Staring at Locke, Angus turned to Elsie and asked, "Is this the Locke Capet you mentioned?" Locke was wearing ordinary combat armor, and his young face became more resolute after more than a month of training. Although he was only wearing ordinary armor, he could not hide the youth's spirit and heroic posture. But that was all. Angus didn't feel fighting air or magic power from Locke either. He was just a strong ordinary person, not as strong as Elsie described. Is it this guy who beat you like this? Looking at Locke, up and down, Leth burst into laughter. Angus doubted whether Elsie had lied to him. Seeing Angus's questioning eyes, Elsie immediately promised, "Chief, I'm sure what I said is true." Angus nodded slightly. He didn't intend to look into it now. Since Locke could come here from the gate, it was true that Locke was extraordinary. His eyes fell on Locke again. Looking at Locke, Angus's eyes were filled with viciousness. He said in a low voice, "Boy, you're a good man. You're the first person to break into the fortress over the years." Although they knew that Athena was very strong, seeing the 2 red bars on Angus's magic robe, Curtin and the others could not help but feel nervous and cautious. Locke looked at Angus without fear. He shook his head and pointed at Angus with his long sword. "You're wrong. I'm not a person who broke into the fortress. I'm the man who would destroy your Black Rock bandits. My chief, look, this loser has got paranoia, ha ha." Hearing Locke's arrogant words, Leth was a little stunned and burst into laughter. The bandits also laughed directly with obvious disdain. A man who was called the most useless man in Naden County said he was going to destroy a force with the level 2 fire mage. How ridiculous it was. Angus also laughed and looked at Locke contemptuously. "You are a loser. You are so arrogant. Do you really think you can be invincible by destroying a little trap in defensive works?" With a disdainful smile, Angus looked at Athena and said, "Capet, if you give me the secret method and the beauty beside you, I can spare your life." Angus looked at Athena with lustful eyes. He had never expected to meet such a beauty in a remote place. He had seen countless noblewomen. With just a glance, he was sure that the woman in front of him, regardless of her beauty or temperament, had surpassed all the women he had seen. Locke didn't pay attention to the secret method in Angus's fantasy. He looked at Angus and said calmly, "You must die today." Athena was his teacher and friend, and no one was allowed to desecrate her. In his eyes, Angus was already a dead man. Curtin and the others also looked at Angus angrily. After getting along with Athena for so long, she had been one of the most respectful people besides Locke for them. Now someone dared to insult her. Damn it. Athena's face was covered with a layer of frost, and her body was emitting a trace of coldness. Feeling this coldness, Curtin and the others could not help but shrink their eyes in an instant, as if their whole body was about to fall into an ice cellar, which was extremely cold. They knew that Miss Athena was really angry. "Well, since you want to struggle to the death, I will fulfill your wish." Obviously, Angus wasn't frightened. He looked at Locke contemptuously and said with a creepy smile, "I won't kill you so soon. I will cut off your limbs first, and then slowly cut off your head, so that you can die in fear. Elsie, you prepare to lead the men to cut off their route of retreat. Leth, I'm going to kill Capet, and you catch that beauty. Remember, don't hurt her. I'll have a good time with her tonight, ha ha." After giving the order, Angus didn't say anything more. He waved the magic wand in his hand, and a head-sized fireball gathered at the top, throwing it in the direction of Locke. The reason why he used the level 1 fireball spell was that he wanted to see if Locke had a secret method to improve strength. On the other hand, he was afraid of hurting Athena. To Angus's surprise, Locke didn't do anything. He even noticed a hint of mockery in Locke's eyes. At the same time, he noticed that Athena, who was standing next to Locke, raised her right hand slightly. A small fireball instantly appeared on her delicate palm. Looking at the small fireball, Angus was shocked and shouted out in disorder, "You are also a mage." The 2 fireballs bumped into each other. Under the watchful eyes of the public, the big fireball was directly smashed into pieces by the small fireball, turning into the magic elements and disappearing in the air. The power of the small fireball was almost not reduced at all, and it continued to hit Angus. "How is that possible? Why is your fireball spell so powerful?" Angus couldn't control himself and shouted out. He couldn't believe his fireball spell was gone. The small fireball whistled and flew over, and he had no time to dodge it. Fire shield. Without hesitation, Angus directly used the defensive magic at level 2, fire shield. A shield made of flames appeared in front of him. Boom. With a loud explosion, the fireball hit the shield. The small fireball only paused for 2 seconds, and then the shield broke like glass. What's more, the fire crystal on the magic wand in Angus's hand exploded on the spot. Angus had no time to dodge and was directly hit by the fireball. Ah! Angus painfully cried and wanted to use magic power to resist the erosion of the flames, but it was useless. A few seconds later, Angus was burnt to ashes and dissipated in the wind. The horrible scene petrified all the bandits present, and their jaws almost fell to their feet. They had been arrogant just now. However, fearful expression was on their faces gradually. It was so powerful. Miss Athena was so powerful. Where did our master find such a horrible person? Seeing that the level 2 fire mage was killed in such a way, Curtin, Becky and the others were too shocked to speak. "I'll leave the rest to you." After dealing with Angus, Athena turned to Locke and said. As soon as she finished her words, Locke felt a strong strength injected into his body. He knew that it was the magic power that Athena had shared. "Don't worry." With an evil smile on his face and strong killing intent in his eyes, Locke held the long sword and rushed towards Leth. Leth had planned to deal with Athena, but when he saw Athena's fireball spell, he flinched. "Are you kidding me? Even Chief is dead. If I fight again, I will die." Leth knew that Black Rock bandits had failed today. Originally, seeing that Athena didn't continue to make a move, Leth secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The next moment, Locke, whom he had been looking down upon, suddenly burst into a powerful strength. Damn it. It's true. Just for a moment, Leth knew that the strength of Locke was not something he could resist. He wanted to escape. However, Locke was rushing at him. He had no choice but to face him. Clang. Locke's sword collided with Leth's. How powerful. In an instant, Leth felt as if his long sword had cut into a hard black iron, making it difficult for him to move forward a little. The tremendous force coming from above directly shook his hand to crack. This huge strength was simply unstoppable. Puff. The two of them had only been in a stalemate for a few seconds. The huge strength shook off the sword of Leth, and he was swept away by Locke's sword, smashing heavily into the distance. With just one move, Leth spat out blood and was almost dead. Elsie had already retreated to a far corner secretly. He clenched his fists and stared at Locke and Athena, with a hint of panic in his hostile eyes. What an idiot. Leth is courting death. Fortunately, he was careful and had found a way out in advance, not listening to the order of Chief and acting rashly. Otherwise, he would die here this time. Locke Capet, wait and see. You will die when we meet next time. Gritting his teeth, Elsie turned around silently. He knew that there was a secret passage to the foot of the mountain in the back mountain. However, just as he turned around and took 2 steps, he suddenly felt a hot breath coming from behind. Bang! With the sound of an explosion, Elsie was burnt to ashes by the fireball spell thrown by Athena. The invincible chief was killed. The second leader and the third leader were dead. The other bandits were also desperate. At this moment, they had completely lost all their will to fight. At this time, all the bandits knew that Black Rock Bandits was doomed. Listen, all the bandits. If you surrender, I won't kill you. Locke shouted, stepping on the dead body of Leth. The bandits looked at each other as if they were considering the authenticity of Locke's promise. One of the bandits trembled slightly and looked at Locke with fear. Do you promise not to kill me? Pointing at Angus's body, Locke repeated, I've told you. You will be safe if surrender. If anyone dares to resist, he will be your fate. The bandit hesitated for a moment, finally dropped his weapon, held his head, and knelt on the ground. Seeing this, the other brigands no longer resisted. They dropped their weapons and knelt on the ground. After taking away all the weapons of the bandits, Athena reminded Curtin to execute more than 10 bandits covered with heavy blood aura. These brigands were definitely full of malice, with much innocent blood on their hands. Except for those who had been killed, there were a total of 73 bandits who surrendered. Locke also knew from these bandits that many of them were civilians in the territory near Lister. They only knew that their chief came from a great force. With this identity, they didn't need to worry about the army besieging them. Moreover, after robbing the trade caravan, they would also have a certain share of interests. Except for this information, these bandits knew nothing. Since he couldn't ask anything, Locke decided to let it go. The most important thing for him now was to build Lister and complete the task. Led by a bandit, Locke found the bandit's treasure house. Locke almost drooled at the wealth of the treasure house. Gold coins, precious porcelains, weapons, medicinal materials, and so on were all in a variety. Master Locke, this time we have collected a total of 10,000 gold coins, 2 level 1 swords, some pieces of cloth and many types of porcelain, and a large number of precious herbs. We can't estimate the specific value. Curtin rubbed his hands and excitedly reported the revenue to Locke. 10,000 gold coins. Although Locke knew that the bandits might have a lot of money, he was still shocked when he heard the number. Even the whole Capet family couldn't afford 10,000 gold coins now. This was 10,000 gold coins. It was enough for him to repair all the Lister. Unfortunately, the level 2 magic wand was broken by Athena's fireball spell. Otherwise, it would be worth at least 10,000 gold coins. But apart from gold coins, there were also many other valuable things. What surprised Locke most was that he found the magic book on level 2 defensive magic, the fire shield Angus had displayed at Angus's residence. Ha, it was a good deal this time. Locke thought happily and then ordered Curtin, I see. Bring the gold coins and the useful items to us and get ready to go back. Curtin nodded and went to make arrangements. With the captives and 3 chariots of spoils, Locke and his team set off happily for the territory. Perhaps the bandits were shocked by the terror of Locke and Athena, and they cooperated well along the way without any accident. Although the procession was large, the forward speed was not slow. In the evening, the procession was only 2 kilometers away from Lister. Click, click, Locke heard the galloping of a horse in front of him. As the sound approached, Locke found that it was none other than Cotter and Hansen. Thank God, Master Locke. You are all right. Seeing that Locke, Curtin, and the others were safe and sound, Cotter finally felt relieved. At noon, he and Hansen had just come back from Bone City. When they saw the mess outside the castle, they guessed that something big must have happened. After they knew that Locke had taken people to attack the brigands' fortress, they were almost scared to death. Especially from the bandits who were caught, they knew that the chief was a level 2 mage. The 2 men, Cotter and Hansen, were deathly pale. A level 2 mage, that was not something they could deal with. Cotter just hoped that his master would shrink back from difficulties and not provoke the other party. With a glimmer of hope, the 2 of them rode after them. At first, hearing the footsteps of a large group of people in front of him, Cotter's heart skipped a beat. He thought something had happened to Locke and the others, and Black Rock bandits planned to make trouble in Lister. When they saw Locke and the group of obedient bandits, the 2 of them were shocked. Master Locke, are these the bandits from Black Rock bandits? Looking at the bandits who were tied with ropes on their hands, Cotter was still unable to react. Or the bandits broken through by Master Locke? Hansen was too shocked to say a word. Locke nodded with a smile, of course, we defeated the bandits. Cotter let Curtin tell him what had happened during the whole process. It was not until then that Locke realized Curtin was how good at telling stories. In Curtin's vivid narration, both Cotter and Hansen exclaimed from time to time, as if they had experienced the scene of fighting. Hearing the exaggerated description from Curtin, Locke just smiled helplessly and turned to chat with Athena. When Curtin's narrative ended, both Cotter and Hansen looked at Athena, who was riding side by side with Locke. In the eyes of the 2, there was incomparable admiration and respect. Soon, they returned to the castle. The residents of Lister didn't go out to work today. They were all anxiously waiting for Locke to come back, worrying about Locke. In more than a month, they had completely recognized Locke as the Lord. Locke's victory naturally caused a shock, and his prestige reached its peak instantly. After coming back, Locke handed the 2 rounds of bandit captives over to Cotter. Cotter and Hansen went to Bone City to recruit new employees. The price was also high, but when they knew that the place to work was poor Lister, many people directly gave up. How about Lister? It was synonymous with poverty and desolation. They didn't know whether they could get their salary or not. If there was an accident, it was a problem whether they could come back or not. In the end, only more than 10 men were willing to come to Lister. But now, with nearly 100 bandits captured, Lister suddenly added more than 100 labor forces. Locke had enough people and money to complete the task now as soon as possible. Not only to finish the task but also to improve the level of completing the task. So he asked Cotter to hire craftsmen with a lot of money to guide the construction of Lister. In addition to craftsmen, he also bought a lot of materials that were needed for repairing the castle. After arranging all these, Locke entered daily practice. With the help of gold coins, many exquisite wooden houses rose from the ground one by one, and the dilapidated castle was gradually changed. A month later, the hall of the castle was not as dilapidated as it used to be. Instead, it was decorated with a gorgeous and exquisite crystal chandelier. The stone pillars had been replaced with exquisitely carved jade pillars. Water cloud sand marble floors and first-class Phoebe table. In general, it was luxurious but connotative. An old man with a white beard reported respectfully to Locke, "My lord, all the buildings of the castle in Lister have been completed." He was Rowan, the leader of the craftsmen. Ding tilde I have detected that host has completed the task and is checking the degree of completion of the task. After Rowan finished his report, a voice that only he could hear rang in Locke's mind again. Detection completed. Congratulations to the host for completing the task. Task completion level, perfect. Mission reward 1. 2,000 pounds of Demeter's potatoes, a product improved by Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, suitable for barren land and yielding a good amount. Improved potatoes. Locke nodded his head. Now Lister had a big problem with food except accommodation. The land here was barren and the natural environment was bad. The annual harvest of residents' farmlands could not even satisfy subsistence. This reward did solve his pressing problem. Locke didn't show too much surprise and excitement. He continued to wait for the broadcast of the system. According to the prompt just now, there were other rewards. Could it be an opportunity to summon gods? At that time, he might be able to summon out Asclepius. Locke thought expectantly. Task reward 2. Victory Temple of Athena. The prompt tone of the system rang again. Hearing the reward, Locke was first stunned, and then ecstatic. It was the Victory Temple of Athena. With the temple, the function of the faith point could be activated, and Athena's strength could also be restored and improved. Moreover, in his previous life, he had seen the recovery picture of Victory Temple of Athena, which was very magnificent. At this time, the task reward was also distributed to the system zone. Locke looked around and saw an exquisite divine temple floating in the air, including the wall, the statue of Athena, the jade pillar, and the stone carving. It had everything just like the micro-carvings seen by Locke in his previous life, which was a mini version of the Victory Temple of Athena. The only difference was that the divine temple was more exquisite and marvelous than the micro-sculptures. While Locke was excited, he saw a small line of signs below the divine temple. Note: host can be directly put in the divine temple at a suitable place. Locke soon understood what it meant. That was to say, as long as he chose a suitable position in Lister and threw the temple out, Victory Temple of Athena would be completed. It was so convenient, simple and fast. Where was suitable to place the palace? Looking at the delicate palace, Locke began to make plans in his mind. After thinking it over, Locke thought the mountain beside the castle was good. It was in a high position, which not only showed the towering of Athena's divine temple but also close to the castle. Locke also had a plan on the time to put the divine temple there. If he just held the divine temple directly, it would probably frighten everyone to death. Therefore, he decided to do it tonight. Not only could he avoid accidents, but also could increase the mystery of the divine temple. After making up his mind, Locke exited the system zone. With a satisfied smile, Locke said to Rowan, "Mr. Rowan, you had worked hard in the past 2 months. On behalf of the people of Lister, thank you for your dedication." "That's what we should do," Rowan replied, lowering his head. Looking at Rowan, Locke continued with a smile, "I've asked someone to prepare your payment." He knew that Rowan came to him for payment. Although there were not many gold coins left after the castle was built, he could still afford the salary of Rowan and others. Hearing this, Rowan's face lit up, and said sincerely, "If Lord needs craftsmen in the future, you can also hire us." In fact, they came to Lister with doubt. They were not only worried that they couldn't get the salary but also worried about their safety. After all, Lister had a bad reputation. But to their surprise, the work went on smoothly this time. Everything about Lister was arranged in an orderly way. What shocked them more was that Lister had a large number of captives. When they asked, they knew that these people were bandits nearby. Bandits, they were a group of ruthless people. Now they were captured by this lord. When they knew what had happened, they admired Locke even more. Locke nodded and said, "If Lister has any project, I will give you priority." The two of them continued to talk for a while before Rowan went back. The problem of living was solved, and then the problem of food was going to be solved. Looking at Rowan's back, Locke breathed a sigh of relief. Now all their food was bought from outside. This was not a permanent solution. Release the task system. Rice is the source of energy. Reclaim new land and plant new seeds, so that your people can have a good meal. Task reward. The payment will be based on the degree of completion of the system. The prompt tone of the system rang again. Locke had already been used to the tasks of the system. But planting potatoes was also a big project and needed to be well planned, so he called Cotter over. Lister didn't have many citizens and there were few lands to cultivate. So Locke decided to reclaim the land first and then cultivate. With a large number of brigand captives joining, the time for reclaiming the farmland would be reduced a lot. To better manage these captives, Locke specially built a house for them. Of course, these houses were not as good as the wooden houses of the citizens, but they could cover the wind and rain. Locke didn't reduce the food, which guaranteed the normal needs of the bandits when they worked. They could have enough food and a place to live, so these bandits were quite cooperative. Very soon, Cotter distributed the payment to Rowan and others. Rowan and the others didn't stay any longer and left directly. After dinner, Athena was reading a book leisurely on the wall of the castle. Locke sat down slowly beside Athena and said mysteriously, "I have prepared a big surprise for you tonight." Athena was slightly stunned. She put down the book as if thinking about what surprise Locke would give her. After a while, she smiled, "Really? I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you'll like this surprise," Locke promised, patting his chest. Hearing this, "I can't wait to see that." Seeing Locke so confident, Athena rested her chin on one hand, with expectation in her eyes. In the evening, Locke and Athena avoided the castle's guards and soon came to the mountain. "Here it is." Looking at the low ridge in front of him, Locke said. Just as Athena was confused, a palm-sized divine temple appeared in Locke's hand. "This is Victory Temple." Looking at the shining palace in Locke's hand, Athena was also surprised, which appeared seldom. "This is what I got this time." Locke nodded and said with a smile, "This is your divine temple. You can arrange it yourself." As he spoke, he gently pushed the divine temple in his hand. The divine temple floated towards Athena and soon fell into the hands of Athena. When it reached Athena's palm, the divine temple trembled slightly, as if it was joyfully finding its master again. Athena looked at the buildings in the divine temple with deep nostalgia in her eyes. After watching for a while, she smiled charmingly. And said to Locke, "Thank you. I like this surprise very much. Ding tilde congratulations to host. Athena's fondness for you has reached 40 points. Athena's fondness has entered the friendly level and will be rewarded with Athena's power of perception. The power of perception, it can make host comprehend and learn all kinds of skills quickly." With the prompt tone of the system, Locke felt a chill enter his brain. In an instant, he felt his brain very clear. At this moment, he suddenly understood the magic principle that he couldn't figure out before. This skill was incredible. Locke sighed and was overjoyed in his mind. The young girl's charming smile warmed his heart. Suppressing the palpitation in his heart, he shook his head and smiled. "As long as you are happy, everything is worth it." As soon as Locke finished his words, the smile on Athena's face became more charming. "This is indeed a good address." Looking at the mountains in front of her, Athena nodded and pushed the divine temple out with a light tap of her fingertip. The divine temple trembled again, and the god's aura continued to scatter. Then it flew towards the distant mountains. From the moment it left Athena's hand, the divine temple began to grow at an extremely fast speed. In just a few seconds, it had turned into a huge palace of dozens of meters high, several times the size of Locke's castle. The palace slowly landed on the mountain range and gradually integrated with it. In just a minute, a magnificent divine temple had already stood on the mountain range. To Locke's surprise, the huge change didn't make any sound. Such a huge palace seemed to have been here from the very beginning. With the divine temple as the center, an invisible strength quickly spread out and soon covered the entire territory of Lister. Waves of strength with vitality spread into the land and vegetation of Lister. The dying plants spat out green sprouts, and the soil made a tisk sound that was hard for humans to capture, as if it was undergoing some transformation. Lister's environment began to change. At the same time, the strength continued to enter the sleeping residents of Lister, slowly repairing the hidden injuries and old diseases in their bodies. Athena seemed to think of something, and with a wave of her hand, the aura emitted from the divine temple disappeared in an instant. Everything that had happened just now disappeared like a dream. In the center of the Acacia continent, in the ancient mage tower, an old man sat steadily like a boulder. His hair and beard had turned gray, and the wrinkles on his face were telling the traces of time. Suddenly, the old man opened his eyes. This strength. Just now, he felt a powerful and mysterious strength, but this strength disappeared in an instant. He could only sense the general direction. After hesitating for a moment, the old man slowly stood up and flew in the direction of perception. The exterior buildings of Victory Temple were all small and elegant towers and stone pavilions. Walking along with the steps, Locke and Athena passed through the exterior buildings and reached the gate of the Divine Temple. The main hall of the temple had beautifully carved colonnades with 4 Ionic columns in front and behind and contained a wingless statue of Athena. On the left was a square, which was paved with marbles. A more than 10 meters high statue of the goddess of victory stood in the center of the square. Look carefully, the statue's face was very similar to Athena's. However, compared with the current Athena, there was more than a hint of divine sanctity, and people have an impulse to worship. Around the square, there were several exquisite buildings. There were several pillars on the front and back of each building. The foundations of these pillars were placed on the exterior stone steps on the ground, and the lower part of each pillar was connected with a set of marble railing decorated with bas-relief. This divine temple is really luxurious. Looking at the various buildings in the divine temple, Locke sighed. After staying in this world for 16 years, it was the first time that he had seen such an exquisite and elegant palace. Of course, my palace is also ranked top among the gods. Touching the exquisite carvings on the relief, Athena said with a little girl's pride, "Let's go and continue to look." Seeing that Athena was so interested, Locke nodded with a smile. After a long time of training, although he hadn't owned the small universe through practicing, it didn't matter to him that he didn't sleep all night. Early in the morning, the mist in the mountains had not completely dissipated. In the morning, Curtin stretched himself and took a deep breath of fresh air. For some reason, he had a good sleep last night. However, it seemed that he had seen something. He was slightly stunned at first and then shook his head helplessly. "I actually saw a palace. Alas, I must be still in a dream." At the same time, Cotter's trembling voice was heard. "No, I saw it too. There seems to be a palace over there." Hearing the voice of Cotter, Curtin was shocked and looked back. When he saw the divine temple again, his eyes widened and he cried out, "Palace! There really is a palace." Ellipsis. Soon, the foot of Victory Temple of Athena was full of people. The sudden appearance of the palace shocked everyone. "Creator! It must be the work of gods." An old man knelt on the ground, trembling. Acacia continent always had legends of gods, the creator who was the head of all gods, the magic god who was in charge of magic, and so on. Although no one had ever seen gods, they had always been a taboo in the hearts of all living beings. "I got up this morning and felt unprecedentedly comfortable. The fatigue yesterday completely disappeared. It must be the effect of this palace." "Me too. I haven't been so comfortable for a long time." "Yes, it must be gods who are looking after us." A group of residents whispered and looked at the divine temple, their eyes full of strong respect. They couldn't think of any other reason for the sudden appearance of such a magnificent palace except for the powerful ability of the gods. An 8 or 9-year-old child stared at Athena's statue, tugged at his parents' clothes, and whispered, "Why, I think the statue looks familiar." "My child, gods cannot be desecrated." The mother hurriedly covered the child's mouth with a cautious look, fearing that the god would hear it and punish them. However, she couldn't help but look at the sculpture curiously. Although the child's voice was not loud, it was still heard by many people. Many people gathered their courage to observe the sculpture carefully. "Oh, I see. That's Sister Athena." It was another girl's clear voice. When everyone saw the sculpture for the first time, their hearts trembled. The statue looked so much like Miss Athena who was standing beside the Lord. At this time, Curtin and Cotter, who had just arrived here, the eyes have been occupied by shock. When they were sure that the palace had really appeared, they wanted to find Locke, but they found that Locke was not in the bedroom, so they went straight to the divine temple. Just as everyone was very shocked, Athena and Locke walked out of the temple. "My lord, Miss Athena." Residents bowed to the two of them one after another, especially when they looked at Athena beside Locke. Their eyes were incomparable respect. "Get up, everyone." Locke nodded and smiled at the kneeling residents, saying, "As you can see, this divine temple was given to Lister by gods. It will bring protection and fortune to us." Seeing that everyone was looking at him eagerly and waiting for his explanation, Locke said loudly, "Lister is a lucky place. Under the protection of gods, it will definitely become better. Let's work together." Hearing Locke's words, the residents all took a deep breath, and the shock in their eyes became more and more intense. Residents believed Locke's words. Sure enough, a huge palace appeared overnight. Other than gods, nobody had such great power. This divine temple was truly the power of gods. Lister was going to be better, actually receiving the favor of the gods. Was Miss Athena the saintess chosen by gods? Afraid of offending gods, residents of Lister didn't dare to cheer loudly, but they had already shouted in their hearts, and their faces turned red with excitement. Athena didn't stay any longer. She greeted everyone with a smile and went back to the castle. A group of people stepped on the steps and began to worship the victory temple of Athena. Master Locke, is Miss Athena the saintess chosen by gods? Seeing Athena leave, Cotter asked cautiously. He was afraid that Athena would hear him. Locke was amused by the cautious look on Cotter's face, a strong man. I said she was a god. Do you believe me? Finishing his word, Locke laughed and left. Cotter and Curtin stood still. And Locke's words directly set off a stormy sea in their hearts. Were there really gods in the world? If there were no gods, how could this palace be explained? The two of them were in a trance for a while, having a dreamy feeling. In the process of worshipping the temple, all the residents were cautious, afraid of doing something wrong that would cause dissatisfaction of the gods. After the worship, the residents also started to reclaim the farmland according to Locke's arrangement. And Locke once again went through tough training. In the evening, after taking a shower, Locke found the attribute panel and began to wait anxiously. Host: Locke Capet. Race: human race. Binding identity: Lord of Lister. Occupation: no. Summoning god: Athena. Fondness: friendly. Faith point: 0. Waiting to be refreshed. Victory Temple of Athena had been established, and the function of the faith point had been activated. However, according to the calculation method of the system, the data would not be refreshed until 12 o'clock in the evening. It was finally 12 o'clock. The attribute panel lit up and the values began to change. Host: Locke Capet. Race: human race. Binding identity: Lord of Lister. Occupation: no. Summoning god: Athena. Fondness: friendly. Faith point: 102. Just as Locke had expected, after the battle with the bandits, Athena's power and wisdom conquered residents. Now, with the appearance of the divine temple, they directly became believers of Athena. Ding! I've detected that host has successfully built the first divine palace. At the same time, you have attained the first batch of believers. You will be rewarded with a chance to summon gods. Hearing the voice of the system, Locke's heart trembled violently, almost jumping out. A chance to summon gods. Ha ha, I finally get the second chance. At the same time, a floating card appeared in front of Locke. Without any hesitation, Locke clicked on the card. The summoning card trembled slightly and then turned into a light door the same as last time. Locke fixed his eyes on the light door, waiting for a god to appear. Finally, under Locke's nervous gaze, a middle-aged man with a beard and a walking stick walked out of the light door.
Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe and see you in the next chapter.